Chapter 1299. As she walked, she waved at Fan Xing. Fan Xing, let's meet again when I get to the top of the Linglong list. Fan Xing lowered his huge head and said in a low voice, you won't be able to get up in a year and a half. As the device spirit of the Linglong Pagoda, he knew Mu Yan's ability very well. He also knew Mu Yan's potential and limit. Therefore, he knew that Mu Yan would not be able to defeat the two golden core geniuses on the Linglong list and get to the top in a short period of time. Especially Lu Jinhang from the Fengtian school. He was a genius that was hard to come by in 1,000 years. He also came from a family and was pampered by thousands of resources since he was young. It could be said that he was blessed by the heavens. On the surface, he was only one place away from Ouyang Qing on the Linglong list. But in reality, there was a huge gap. Mu Yan might have a chance to surpass Ouyang Qing in a year. However, wanting to surpass Lu Jinhang was just nonsense. Hearing Fan Xing's words, Mu Yan only smiled. Nothing is absolute. How would you know if you don't try? Plus a year and a half. My baby can't wait that long. In the morning, the entire Starry School was shocked by what happened in the Alcade branch. But there was still a group of people who stayed in front of the Linglong list the whole night, not caring about what was happening outside at all. Because in just one night, they witnessed a miracle. They saw the name Yi Liangchen climb up from the 18th place to the 3rd place with their own eyes. That was the 3rd place on the Linglong list. It was a height that others could never reach in their entire lives. But Yi Liangchen only spent a few hours to reach it. Originally, the people in front of the Linglong list were worried that Yi Liangchen was not from the Starry School. If someone from the Spiritual Martial Arts School came to challenge them again. But they were still celebrating. It would be really embarrassing in the end. Luckily, 3 clangs sounded and the Linglong wish came into effect, calming them down. Chunping and Wu Gui danced with joy like diehard fans. Oh my! I didn't expect God Yi to be a new student of the Starry School. But I've never heard of Yi Liangchen among the freshmen. Haha. Then it must be God Yi, who changed his name. Tisk, who would be so stupid? It's such a good opportunity to become famous, but you're not using your real name. Our great God Yi is always low-key and humble, unlike some people. They obviously didn't get exquisite wish, but they still have the nerve to pretend. They're too shameless. Because of Yap Liangchen's monstrous and heaven-defying performance, most of the people who were waiting in front of the list of delicacy had automatically become her fans. Just like Chunping, Wu Gui, and the others, they were full of admiration for this new almighty. At the same time, he secretly despised Hua Xiangrong, who had falsely claimed the exquisite wish. At this moment, someone raised his head to look at the sky, and his expression suddenly changed. He said, stop talking. Look who's here. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword light arrived. Hua Xiangrong jumped down from the long sword and stared in the direction of the Linglong Tower. His face was pale and his lips were trembling, but his eyes were filled with unwillingness. Hua Xiangrong, what is she doing here? How dare she come to Linglong Tower? Chapter 1300. I thought Hua Xiangrong was powerful, but now it seems that she is much weaker than our Master Yi. The whispers around suddenly came into Hua Xiangrong's ears. She suddenly clenched her hands, her eyes were red, and the bitter tears were about to gush out. But she was proud, so she forcibly held back her tears. She didn't believe that she would lose to that Yi Liangchen. She was the number 1 in Enyu Palace. She was the genius senior sister admired by everyone. How could she lose to a nobody? Right at this moment, Chunping and Wu Gui suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air and exclaimed in surprise. Master Yi! Everyone was shocked and hurriedly looked at where they were looking. At the gate of Linglong Tower, a young man in cyan clothes and a mask was slowly walking out of the tower. The morning sunlight fell on one side of his exposed face. His skin was more crystal clear than white porcelain, and it seemed that it could be broken by a blow. Someone gasped and said incredulously, Yi Liangchen is so young? He is obviously several years younger than Hua Xiangrong. How on earth did he climb to the top 3 on the list of Linglong? Hua Xiangrong was more shocked than all of them. Even if the young man in front of her was masked and his face could not be seen clearly, she knew he was very young just by looking at his figure and skin. She not only lost Linglong Wish, but also lost to such a young man? How could it be possible? Hua Xiangrong suddenly stepped forward and raised her voice. You are Yi Liangchen? Seeing Hua Xiangrong here, Muyin also raised her eyebrows in surprise. Then she crossed her arms and said with a faint smile, So what? So what if I am not? If you are Yi Liangchen, Hua Xiangrong gritted her teeth and said word by word, I will challenge you. Yi Liangchen, do you have the guts to fight with me face to face? As soon as she said that, the entire square in front of Linglong Tower was excited. Mu Yin slightly narrowed her eyes, and her peach blossom eyes were rippling with dangerous light. Hua Xiangrong, forget about her, man. But she even dared to close Yaoguang branch and hurt her fellow apprentices. It was time to settle this score. Sure. Mayan raises her hand, and the Qiju S sword, which is emitting a 7-colored light, appears in her hand. Since you want to humiliate yourself, then as you wish. This time, the square was really boiling. Everyone sent out message talismans. Some sent out message talismans. The one who opened the bet, opened the bet. They were all guessing who would win this battle. It must be Yap Liangchen. Yi Liangchen is ranked 3rd on the list of delicacy, while Hua Xiangrong is only ranked 9th. How can they compare? That's not necessarily true. Master Yi climbed the Linglong Tower for a whole night and consumed a lot of his spiritual force. Maybe Hua Xiangrong took advantage of him. That's right. What's more, Hua Xiangrong is the most outstanding disciple of the Yinyu Palace. She has countless magic treasures. Goddess Yi is not necessarily her match. I bet that Yi Liangchen will win. I bet on Hua Xiangrong. Why haven't those people from our super monastery arrived yet? Such an exciting competition is about to begin. A quarter of an hour later, more and more flying boats and flying swords fell in front of the Linglong Tower. Countless people desperately rushed here, only hoping to see the unprecedented battle between the strongest freshmen on the list of delicacy. Chapter 1301. There was no whistling sword chi, saber light, or sword shadow. There was no surging spiritual power or cold-killing intent. In the open space in front of the Linglong Tower, a young man in cyan was playing with the tassel of the long sword in his hand. The pink lips under the mask were slightly raised, revealing a cynical smile. At his feet was Hua Xiangrong, who was in a mess and could not even stand up. What the hell is going on? The people who had just arrived asked their friends who informed them to watch the battle. Isn't it said that there will be the most wonderful battle? What does this situation mean? The person who was originally in the square wiped his face, his expression calm and lifeless. As you can see, it's just like what you saw. You're too slow. The battle has been finished. What? The people who had just arrived were about to go crazy. I have used the fastest flying sword, and it only took me a quarter of an hour. But it only took Master Yi 10 minutes to defeat Hua Xiangrong. By the time you arrived, it would be too late. Everyone's gaze fell on the green-robed youth, and they were all in a state of confusion. Who is this young man? It only took him 10 minutes to defeat Hua Xiangrong, the 9th on the list of delicacy. Where did he come from? After a long while, Hua Xiangrong raised her dusty and blood-stained face and stared at Yi Liangchen. Her face was full of shock and self-doubt. Mu Yin gently knocked the ground with the tip of the sword and asked casually, Do you want to continue? Hua Xiangrong struggled to stand up, but suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, the spiritual power in her body collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Hua Xiangrong's face became more terrible, and she was even weaker than a mortal. It seemed that even a practitioner in the body-refining stage could easily stab her to death. Mu Yin raised her eyebrows and was quite surprised. It turns out that you have taken the Shenghua elixir. No wonder your strength has improved so much in a short time. However, you should also know the sequelae of the Shenghua elixir. Is it worth it just for an exquisite wish? As soon as Mu Yin said this, all the onlookers suddenly exploded. Shenghua elixir? Isn't it a 7th grade elixir? It can greatly increase one's cultivation. but after 7 days, one will become incomparably weak. Bah! I thought Hua Xiangrong was really so powerful that she entered the top 10 of the list of delicacy faster than Senior Ouyang. It turns out that she got all this by cheating. How can the people from Silver Plume Palace be so shameless? Exquisite Wish was a fake, and his position on the list of delicacy was obtained through cheating. To think that I was so eager to enter the Silver Feather Palace in the past. Hua Xiangrong was drowned in the disdainful eyes and words of the people around her like a tide. She had never suffered such humiliation before, and her whole body trembled uncontrollably. She could no longer hold back her tears as they streamed down her cheeks. At this moment, all her pride and dignity were trampled underfoot. A life worse than death. However, she had brought all of this upon herself. The battle just now made her clearly aware of the gap between her and this young man. She didn't even have the courage to be jealous. But now, after consuming the great glory pill, she no longer had any hope of ascending to immortality. At this moment, she was like a piece of trash that anyone could poke to death with a finger. What was the point of living like this? Chapter 1302. However, before her hand touched the top of her head, it was poked away by Mu Yan's sword. Hua Xiangrong stared blankly at the red mark on her hand. Suddenly, she raised her head and roared hysterically at Mayan. I've lost to you and lost my reputation. What else do you want? Didn't she even have the freedom to choose death? Mu Yan looked at her condescendingly. There was no pity at the bottom of her beautiful peach blossom eyes, but there was strong contempt. I don't want anything. I just didn't expect that the person who can compete with me on the Linglong list is such a useless coward. You even have the courage to take the Shenghua pill, and you even have the cheek to falsely claim the Linglong wish, but you still care about what others think of you and what they say about you? Ha! Don't you think it's funny? The skin on Hua Xiangrong's face trembled, and finally she lowered her head in embarrassment and anger. But what echoed in her mind was not the vicious words of the youth, but the words, the person who can compete with me on the Linglong list. Yi Liangshan, does he really think that I can compete with him on the Linglong list? Does he recognize me as his opponent? Why? At the thought of this possibility, Hua Xiangrong's heart was on fire. The despair and hopelessness that he had felt earlier had disappeared without a trace. Only expectation, hot blood, and desire were left. Mu Yan turned her hand, put away the 7 absolute swords, and then waved to Hua Xiangrong. Okay, I've said what I want to say. Go ahead if you want to die. Don't worry, I won't stop you again. The onlookers couldn't help but burst into laughter. Hua Xiangrong was even more ashamed, but strangely, there was no anger or hatred. Seeing that Mu Yan was about to leave, she suddenly plucked up her courage and cried, I can compete with you on the Linglong list? Yi Liangshan, do you really think so? But I cheated, and there is a big gap between us, and I was defeated so thoroughly, completely. The young man in front of him was the real bright and clear moon. He was shockingly talented. She had been jealous and envious in her heart. But after the battle, she was full of admiration and despair. Hua Xiangrong knew that she could never catch up with the youth in front of her, even if she cheated with the Shenghua pill. Mu Yan was a little surprised. She didn't expect that Hua Xiangrong cared about this sentence. Now, she felt that this woman was somewhat interesting. Mu Yan smiled lightly, his expression lazy and careless, but that smile was truly indescribably arrogant and confident. I'm someone who's going to climb to the top of the rankings and become famous throughout the world. Isn't it normal for you to lose to me? When she said this, even though she was wearing a mask, one could see that she was full of confidence. However, the young man's eyebrows that were exposed outside the mask were so beautiful and dazzling that no one could feel a trace of ill will towards him. He felt that if it was him, he would definitely be able to do it. Someone in the crowd was already shouting, Long live God Yi. God Yi, we all support you. Mu Yan smiled, waved to the crowd, and turned to leave. Hua Xiangrong's mind was filled with the stunning and arrogant smile of the young man, and her heart felt as if it was being scratched by a cat. Seeing that Yi Liangshan was about to leave, he couldn't help but shout, Yi Liangshan, can you tell me your true identity? At this moment, almost everyone knew that Yap Liangshan was not this young man's real name. Chapter 1303. Mu Yin turned her head and smiled, but the words that came out of her mouth were very impolite. Who do you think you are? Why should I tell you? Then, before Hua Xiangrong could react, she had already boarded the flying ship and disappeared in the sky. Hua Xiangrong stared blankly at the direction she left and only got up after a long while. A determined look appeared on his dirty and battered face. Yi Liangshan, I will not fall like this. It doesn't matter if I fail. I will start again. One day, I will catch up to you and be on the Linglong list with you. Thinking that her name and Yi Liangshan's name appeared side by side on the list of delicacy, Hua Xiangrong blushed. Then, her eyes were filled with endless hope and light. She knew that everything Yi Liangshan did was for her own good and to encourage her. She would never give up on herself and let Yi Liangshan down. In a town a few miles away from the Starry School, Wei Tianming paced back and forth in a house, his face full of uncontrollable anger and frustration. From the moment the Linglong Tower's device spirit appeared, everything was in chaos. He was banished by Ordinary Star. There was no way for him to enter the Starry School now. Every time he got close to the Starry School, he would feel pain all over his body. His cultivation was also slipping away bit by bit. After trying a few times, Wei Tianming could only come to the town unwillingly. He had already sent a message talisman to College Chief Diu Dao. Now, he was anxiously waiting for College Chief Zhai's arrival in the house. Everything he, Wei Tianming, did was to share Dean Zhai's worries. If College Chief Zhai wanted to burn the bridge after crossing the river, don't blame him for leaking some information that shouldn't be said. Creak! The door of the room was suddenly pushed open. Wei Tianming raised his head suddenly, his face full of surprise. College Chief Zhai, you finally... Why is it you? His expression changed and he looked at the person who walked in suspiciously. The light from outside the house shone in, making the person's face appear indistinct and hard to discern. But Wei Tianming still recognized him. Su Yilan, why are you here? The door was slowly closed. The elegant middle-aged man had a smile on his face as he slowly walked towards him. It was Su Yilan, the deputy chief of the Starry School. There were a few vice deans in the Starry School. Su Yilan was the one with the least presence. Usually, he was only in charge of trivial matters such as the recruitment of new students and new teachers. He did not have any real power in the academy. So even though his rank was higher than Wei Tianming's attitude towards him was not very respectful. So after the shock, Wei Tianming quickly calmed down. He asked him patiently, "Did Dean Zhai ask you to come?" Su Yilan smiled. "Sort of." Wei Tianming irritatedly stood up from his chair. He paced around the room and loudly said, "Go back and tell Dean Zhai that I want to see him. Tell him to personally come find me here." The smile on Su Yilan's face became even warmer. "Dean Wei, oh no, Brother Wei, do you have anything to say to me?" Wei Tianming was startled. He felt that Su Yilan was acting strangely today. The aura he exuded was completely different from his usual gentle and refined aura. Chapter 1304. However, Su Yilan did not leave. Instead, he slowly approached him. The smile on his face deepened. Wei Tianming looked at him in astonishment, then flew into a rage out of humiliation. "I told you to get out. Did you hear me?" After saying that, he slammed his palm towards Su Yilan's chest. However, before his hand could touch Su Yilan, he felt a heart-wrenching pain in his dantian. "Ah!" Wei Tianming let out a mournful scream and slowly lowered his head. Then, he watched in disbelief as Su Yilan's hand penetrated his dantian. That hand was holding his nascent soul, neither too tightly nor too loosely. Like a cat teasing a mouse, he gently kneaded it. The pain on Wei Tianming's face turned into disbelief and fear. "You why?" Su Yilan moved closer to him and whispered in his ear, "Do you still remember last year? You guys killed." Su Yilan's voice was extremely soft. Wei Tianming was in so much pain that he almost couldn't hear what he was saying. Su Yiluan's last name entered her ears. Wei Tianming abruptly opened his eyes wide, his entire body trembling from extreme fear. You, who are you? How do you know her? Don't kill me. No, no, that has nothing to do with me. It's Diyu Dao. It's all Diyu Dao's fault. I beg you spare me. Ah! Amidst Wei Tianming's terrified and desperate screams, Su Yiluan crushed his nascent soul and threw him to the ground. Then, a sly smile appeared on his gentle face. Don't worry, I won't let anyone who harmed her back then get away with it. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Su Yiluan waved his hand to eliminate all the auras in the room, and then he turned into black mist and left quietly. Not long after Su Yiluan left, the door was pushed open again. Diyu Dao's figure appeared outside the door. However, as soon as he entered and saw the scene inside, he was so shocked that he almost screamed. Inside the room, there was a body placed on an armchair facing the door. The limbs of the body were chopped off and placed neatly on both sides. There was a huge bloody hole in his abdomen, and the reason for his crushing was scattered in every corner of the room. The eyes of the body were gouged out. A pair of ears were cut off and stuffed into the mouth. Even his nostrils had been reduced to 2 bloody holes. However, such a broken body was still alive. His chest was still heaving gently, and his throat made a terrible sound like a broken bellows. Diyu Dao suddenly came back to his senses. He quickly closed the door and took out the ear from his mouth. Tianming, is that you? What the hell happened? Ah! However, as soon as the ear was taken out, Diyu Dao discovered that Wei Tianming's tongue had also been cut off. He could not answer him at all. Diyu Dao's expression constantly changed. He suddenly reached out and pressed his hand on Wei Tianming's head, pouring in spirit energy. What he wanted to do was to search her soul. This kind of soul-searching would cause irreversible damage to Wei Tianming's divine sense and brain. But Diyu Dao couldn't care less. He only wanted to know who had acted against Wei Tianming. Furthermore, he had used such cruel methods. For some reason, he had a bad feeling about this. Chapter 1305. Spiritual power poured in and quickly seized Wei Tianming's spirit. Just as he was about to pinch open the spirit to see what was going on, suddenly, an extremely cold primordial chi surged into his spiritual power and then drilled into his body. Puff! Diyu Dao's reaction was extremely fast, and he quickly used his spiritual power to dodge. But he was still one step too late. His sense of perception was violently shaken, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood uncontrollably. Almost at the same time, Wei Tianming's body exploded with a bang. Blood and pieces of flesh splattered all over Diyu Dao, making him look extremely disheveled. Diyu Dao glared at Wei Tianming's scattered body and gritted his teeth. Who are you? How dare you scheme against me? His lips curled into a sinister smile. Do you really think I won't be able to find you? When I find you, I will definitely tear you into pieces. Diyu Dao brushed his body, and the blood and flesh on his body disappeared. He also changed his clothes. He quickly walked out of the yard, but his eyes were looking in the direction of the Starry School. The Alcade branch actually failed to seal this time. It seemed like he could only wait for the next chance. Alcade branch. Junior sister, you're finally back. 6 senior sister, we've already seen the Linglong list. You're already number 1. You're really amazing. Junior sister is the best. As soon as Mayan returned to the Alcade branch, she was warmly welcomed by her fellow disciples. Lung Yuma rushed up and wanted to give her a hug, but it affected the wounds on her body, and she couldn't help but gasp. 4 senior sister, how are you? Mayan quickly checked Lung Yuma's wounds. It would have been better if she didn't check. Once she did, her face darkened. She only felt that she didn't teach Hua Xiangrong a good lesson. Luo Yu and Chu Moli were fine, just external injuries. But Lung Yuma and the other 3 were injured by the Golden Core Deacons. Luckily, the injuries weren't serious. They only needed to be treated with music to recover completely. Seeing the guilt in Mayan's eyes, Yun Ruhan quickly said, Junior sister, don't blame yourself. This has nothing to do with you. It was all thanks to you obtaining the exquisite wish that we were able to expel Wei Tianming and protect the Alcade branch. Huh? Little junior sister, you didn't see their expressions when the exquisite pagoda spirit told them that Yi Liangshen was the one who obtained the exquisite wish. It was hilarious. I know Six Senior Sister must be 100 times better than that Hua Xiangrong. By the way, Six Senior Sister, did Hua Xiangrong go to find you? Did she make things difficult for you? Mayan sneers. Do you think she didn't make things difficult for me? It's just a pity that I didn't beat her up more. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. They could all imagine how miserable Hua Xiangrong was. If those people knew that Yap Liangchun was Jun Muyin, they would be so angry that their noses would be crooked. After laughing, Ling Yuxing lowered his eyebrows and said softly, Little junior sister, you don't need to feel guilty. The one who should feel guilty is me. Wei Tianming came for me. I've implicated everyone. Old Five, what nonsense are you talking about? Lung Yuma punched him in the chest. Who are we? What implicated you? Chu Moli says thoughtfully. I think that today's matter isn't aimed at little junior sister or Old Five. What do you mean? Chapter 1306. On the contrary, I think that Wei Tianming's focus is on sealing the Yaoguang branch. We're just targets for them to attack in passing. Mu Yin couldn't help but turn her eyes to this desolate Yaoguang branch. During this time, because Di Mingju and the young martial uncle were absent, fewer people came to the Yaoguang branch. As a result, the place slowly became gloomy, as if there were ghosts wandering around. Mu Yin frowned slightly. Just like the first time she entered the Yaoguang branch, she always felt that there seemed to be something in the Yaoguang branch. She couldn't see it, couldn't touch it, but from time to time, it would make her feel a chill down her spine. What happened to the Yaoguang branch that year? That such a large branch would be abandoned like this. At night, Mu Yin is in a daze. She suddenly hears the sound of a zither. It's like weeping and complaining, desolate and resentful. But it also carries the solemnity of swallowing mountains and rivers. Mu Yin suddenly awakens from her sleep and asks Qi Huang and Little Phoenix, Did you hear the sound of the zither? Qi Huang lazily turns over. What zither sound? Jun Mu Yin, are you dreaming? Qiuqiu also shakes his head in a daze. Beautiful sister, Qiuqiu didn't hear anything. The sound of the zither in Mu Yan's ears has become a lot quieter, but she can still hear it if she listens carefully. For people who are good at music, the emotions and conduct expressed in the sound of the zither are the most difficult to conceal. This is the so-called seeking a bosom friend in high mountains and flowing water. As Mu Yin listens, a vague shadow seems to appear in front of her eyes. Wounded, riddled with holes, resentful and hateful. But that righteous spirit and unyielding character have never been obliterated. Mu Yin can't help but get up and follow the sound. She almost goes through the entire Yaoguang branch, but she still can't find the source of the sound. Moreover, Mu Yin feels that the sound of the zither is getting lighter and lighter, as if it is slowly dissipating between heaven and earth. She almost goes back in disappointment, but she suddenly stops in front of a huge cliff. She feels that the sound of the zither here seems to be a little louder, a little more solid. Mu Yin gently touches the cliff, and even uses the 7 Absolutes sword to cut it a few times. But she doesn't feel that it's any different from an ordinary cliff. The sound of the zither is getting weaker and weaker, as if it's desperate, as if it has given up everything. Mu Yin can't bear it anymore. She suddenly sits cross-legged, and the 7 Absolute sword in her hand turns into the Tianmo Qin. His 10 fingers moved lightly, and the sound of the zither rose. Similarly, it was as if she was weeping and complaining, but there was no mournful wail. Instead, it was filled with sorrow. It was the same aura that could devour mountains and rivers, but there was no resentment or unwillingness. Instead, it pierced through the 9 heavens. Slowly, one light and one heavy, the 2 Guqin sounds blended together. You nourish me, and I nourish you. You warm me, I warm you. High mountains and flowing rivers, so close yet so far away, but a true heart is within reach. At the end of the song, the sun rose in the eastern sky. Mayan wipes the sweat from her forehead. Her body and spirit are somewhat exhausted, but she also feels indescribably hearty. She had never had a zither duel with someone to such a degree where they were on good terms and knew each other so well. She did not know who this person was, whether it was a man or a woman, young or old. But just from the tune of the zither, she felt that this person was a natural confidant of hers. She suddenly hears Chi Huang's voice. "Jun Mayan, why are you suddenly playing the zither in the middle of the night?" Mu Yin already understood, but she still couldn't help but ask, "Did you really only hear the sound of my zither, and not the sound of the other zither?" Chapter 1307. You're stupid. Your whole family is stupid. Believe it or not, this old mother will serve you with an itchy meat set. Mine is too lazy to pay attention to Chi Huang, this brat, but she can't help but look back at the cliff. So, is she the only one who can hear this zither sound? Was someone playing, or was it really just her hallucination? Mine goes all the way back to the side hall where her fellow apprentices live and is about to go back to her room to sleep. She sees a flying sword falling from the sky, landing at the door of the side hall. Ouyang Qing comes down from the flying sword, his hair messy and his expression flustered. Seeing Mayan, he immediately rushes over. "I heard that little Sheng was injured. How is his injury?" Just as Mayan is about to reply, she sees another flying boat descending from the sky. Ouyang Mingzhu comes down from above and rushes towards Mayan with large strides, her beautiful face twisting. But seeing Ouyang Qing, she immediately restrains the hatred on her face and shows the same anxious look, as if she is very concerned about Ling Yuxing's safety. Seeing that Mayan doesn't answer, Ouyang Qing wants to rush over to find Ling Yuxing, but he is stopped by Mayan. Fifth brother's injury is indeed very serious, but what does this have to do with Brother Ouyang? How can it have nothing to do with him? I said that I will protect little Sheng. Mayan sneers. When fifth brother was injured, where were you? Where were you when fifth brother was driven out of Yaguang branch? And now you're telling me that you want to protect fifth brother? Ouyang Qing's face suddenly becomes a bit pale. He never thought that so many things would happen after he left for just 2 days. The day before yesterday, Ouyang Mingzhu suddenly came to find Ouyang Qing with a pale face, saying that she had a cultivation deviation because of an accident in her cultivation. She asked Ouyang Qing to accompany her back to the Ouyang family to find their father for treatment. Ouyang Qing finally reunited with Ling Yuxing and was reluctant to leave, but Ouyang Mingzhu is his younger sister after all. Now that she had a cultivation deviation and suffered internal injuries, he could only accompany her back to the Ouyang family. Ouyang Mingzhu's heart is really proud and sweet. She knows that her brother loves her the most. Who is that Ling Yuxing? How can he be compared with her and her brother's feelings? Once the two of them got off the flying boat, Ouyang Mingzhu immediately bounced over and held Ouyang Qing's arm. Many people in the Dubby branch courtyard looked at Ouyang Mingzhu and Ouyang Qing with unclear gazes. Ouyang Mingzhu, on the other hand, thought that these people were envious and jealous of her, which made her even more pleased with herself. He did not notice the pity in everyone's eyes. Ouyang Qing couldn't help but reprimand. "Your injuries have just healed. Don't be too conceited. Why haven't you returned to Alioth Academy and had a good rest?" Ouyang Mingzhu smiled coquettishly. "But I'm happy. As long as she was with her brother, Mingzhu would be extremely happy. Mingzhu will never leave Big Brother." Ouyang Qing glanced at her, pulled out her hand, and scolded. "Don't talk nonsense. You will eventually get married." Ouyang Mingzhu pouted. "I don't want to. How can other men be compared to brother? Mingzhu will accompany Big Brother for a lifetime and will never be separated from Big Brother." As she spoke, she was about to rush forward and grab his hand again. But this time, Ouyang Qing did not let her have her way. Instead, she impatiently took a few steps back. Chapter 1308. Ouyang, you're finally back. Something big happened in Yaoguang Branch yesterday. Ouyang Mingzhu was overjoyed when she heard that. It seemed that her uncle's plan was successful. The annoying Ling Yuxing was finally driven out of the school. Once he left the protection of Starry's school, it would be a piece of cake for her to find someone to kill that bitch. Ouyang Qing's expression changed greatly. She grabbed him and asked, "What did you say? What happened in Yaoguang Branch? How is Sheng? Is he hurt?" Ouyang Mingzhu frowned, and the hatred in her heart towards Ling Yuxing increased a little. Fan Ting took a breath and said, "It started yesterday. Hua Xiangrong, the junior sister of our school, entered the top 10 of the list of delicacy and said that she made an exquisite wish. Junior sister Hua's wish was to seal Yaoguang Branch forever and expel all the people in the branch." Ouyang Qing gasped. No one knew better than him what an exquisite wish was, because he was the last person who made an exquisite wish. His voice was trembling. "Is Sheng of Yaoguang Branch already?" "No. The people of Yaoguang Branch fought with their lives to prevent Yaoguang Branch from being sealed. However, both of them had suffered serious injuries." "But Ouyang, that's not what I want to tell you." Fanting was about to say that the person who really got the exquisite wish was not Hua Xiangrong. Hearing that Ling Yuxing was injured, Ouyang Qing couldn't wait any longer. She jumped on the flying sword and flew to Yaoguang Branch as fast as lightning. Ouyang Mingzhu's face was colorful, and she was full of hatred. She didn't expect Ling Yuxing to be so lucky that he hadn't been driven out yet. Why was Hua Xiangrong so useless? She got the exquisite wish, but she didn't allow her to kill those bitches of the Xiaoyao school. And uncle, what on earth did he do? Ouyang Mingzhu was thinking a lot, but she quickly got on the flying boat, ready to catch up with Ouyang Qing. Humph, she wouldn't give the shameless Ling Yuxing a chance to seduce her brother. "Hey, wait a minute, I want to tell you that college chief Wei." Fanting wanted to talk to Ouyang Mingzhu, but Ouyang Mingzhu shook off his hand and murmured with a sneer, "Even if those people from Yaoguang Branch shamelessly stay for a while, so what? As long as uncle is here, as long as we have exquisite wish, they will still have to scram." Fan Ting looked at her disappearing silhouette and shook his head, revealing a mocking smile. Ouyang's little sister might look cute on the surface, but she was secretly malicious. It was truly nauseating. He wondered when Ouyang would be able to see his sister's true colors. Ouyang Qing and Ouyang Mingzhu arrived at the Yaoguang Branch one after the other. They didn't see Ling Yuxing, but were questioned by Mayan. "Where were you when fifth senior brother was injured?" "When the fifth brother was about to be kicked out of the Yaoguang Branch, where were you? Now you're telling me that you want to protect fifth senior brother?" Facing Mu Yan's piercing question, Ouyang Qing's hands are tightly clenched, but he can't answer a single word. Ouyang Ming explained, "Big brother accompanied me back to the Ouyang residence for treatment because I was injured. My brother is worried about me." "Miss June, why do you have to question my brother?" Mu Yan frowns, her eyes cold. Chapter 1309. Our Yaoguang Branch is a small temple. We can't afford to accommodate you great Buddhas. Xiao Sheng. Ouyang Qing sees the person, but she can't hear what he's saying. She steps forward and grabs his hand. "You're hurt? Is it serious?" The youngster's face is a bit pale. As soon as Ouyang Qing's spiritual power enters, she notices the internal injuries in Ling Yuxing's body. Last night, they were worried about Mu Yan, so they didn't allow her to treat them. So, Ling Yuxing's injuries haven't healed yet. Ling Yuxing wants to pull his hand back, but Ouyang Qing doesn't let go. She even grabs his wrist, directly transferring her spiritual power to him. "You're crazy." Ling Yuxing suddenly pushes her. "Why are you transferring your spiritual power to me?" Spiritual power is different from spiritual energy. It's the essence of a person's spiritual energy that is constantly cleansed and condensed in the Dantian. It's different from spiritual energy that can be restored after consumption, but the loss of spiritual power is irreversible. Generally, there are very few people who would transfer spiritual power to each other. Because the attributes of spiritual power are different, mutual transfer will cause the other party to go berserk. But Ling Yuxing and Ouyang Qing are different. They're childhood sweethearts. Before Ling Yuxing entered the Xiao Yao school, every bit of spiritual power in his body was cultivated under Ouyang Qing's guidance. They used the same mental cultivation method and mnemonic chants and practiced the same battle spells. For many years, the two often transfer their spiritual power as if they're one. But now, why is Ouyang Qing doing this? After experiencing so many things, what's the point of him transferring his spiritual power to her? Ling Yuxing's eyes are red, staring at Ouyang Qing. His eyes are full of sorrow and hatred. Ouyang Qing's hand trembles, and she loosens his wrist. Ling Yuxing immediately steps back, keeping a distance from her. Ouyang Qing wants to step forward, but Mu Yin is one step ahead, blocking Ling Yuxing behind her. Her face no longer has the lazy and gossipy look she usually has when she teases Ouyang Qing and Ling Yuxing, only full of coldness. "Brother Ouyang, please don't come looking for our fifth brother anymore." Then she sneers. "Your approach will only bring danger to fifth brother, so please don't appear again." Ouyang Qing is startled. "What do you mean?" "What do I mean?" Of course it's the literal meaning. Lung Umo, who had just come out of the house, sneered. "You keep saying that you want to protect Little Five's safety, but when something happened to Little Five, you don't even have a shadow." Ouyang Qing suddenly looked at Ling Yuxing, but Ling Yuxing coldly avoided his gaze. Mayan sneered faintly. "Master Ouyang, don't you know that the person who came to seal the Yaoguang branch yesterday, an injured fifth brother, was your uncle, Wei Tianming?" The people around you have repeatedly made things difficult for fifth senior brother and bullied him. Don't tell me that you don't know anything? When Ouyang Qing heard that, his face suddenly darkened. However, he did not show any surprise. Instead, he clenched his fists tightly. After a long while, he finally raised his head and looked at Ling Yuxing, and his voice became hoarse as if it was being torn apart. "Little Sheng, believe me, I won't leave you again. Even if I die, I'll definitely protect you. Little Sheng, can you trust me one more time?" The man's hoarse and broken voice made Ling Yuxing's heart tremble. Chapter 13:10. Chu Moli played with the jade pendant tassels on his waist and suddenly asked indifferently, "Young Master Ouyang, I'd like to ask, where did you go yesterday?" Ouyang Mingzhu had seen the interaction between Ouyang Qing and Ling Yuxing. When she heard Ling Yuxing say that Ouyang Qing had transferred her spiritual yuan to him, she felt like there were thousands of ants gnawing on her heart. When she heard Chu Moli's question, she immediately said, "Big brother Ling, don't blame big brother. He was worried about me when I went berserk, so he specially accompanied me back to the Ouyang family. When we heard that something had happened to the Alcade branch, we immediately rushed over." As she spoke, she moved closer to Ouyang Qing and threw a provocative look at Ling Yuxing. Chu Moli laughed lightly. "Oh, so it was because Miss Ouyang was injured, so you returned to the Ouyang family." But the timing of Miss Ouyang's berserk was really coincidental. It was neither early nor late, just when Principal Wei wanted to seal the Alcade branch. Luo Yu rolled her eyes. "How can there be so many coincidences in this world? Just happened to expose my fifth senior brother's disguise in front of everyone. Just happened to let everyone know that fifth senior brother likes men. Just happened to assign fifth senior brother to the Alcade branch that doesn't even have a shadow. Just happened to be injured when Wei Tianming wanted to seal the Alcade branch. And just happened to have you send her home." Ouyang Qing, do you really think that these are all coincidences? Following Luo Yu's narration, Ouyang Qing's expression became more and more unsightly. Then, he suddenly looked towards Ouyang Mingzhu. Ouyang Mingzhu shuddered when she saw the killing intent in his eyes. "Mingzhu, I remember telling you before not to try and touch Xiao Sheng. Otherwise, don't blame me for not recognizing you as my sister." Ouyang Mingzhu only felt her entire body stiffen and tremble, her back soaked in cold sweat. Only at this moment did she realize how decisive and cold-blooded Ouyang Qing, who was being raised as the next leader of the Ouyang family, was. She desperately shook her head, her voice trembling. Brother, how can you doubt me? I grew up with Big Brother Ling. When I first met him, I didn't treat him well, because I was afraid that he would affect your reputation. Why would I intentionally harm him, even if it was my uncle? He was only carrying out Ling Long's wish. The one who really wanted to harm Big Brother Ling was the Inu Palace. Yes, it was Hua Xiangrong of the Inu Palace. It had nothing to do with me. This time, Ouyang Qing did not show her the gentle and tolerant smile of an elder brother. Instead, he snorted coldly. You'd better remember what you said. Otherwise, Ouyang Qing did not finish her sentence, but it made Ouyang Mingzhu's face turn even paler. Her hands and feet were covered in cold sweat. After the fear, it was replaced by anger and jealousy. Xiao Sheng, Xiao Sheng, Xiao Sheng. Why was Ouyang Qing's heart only filled with that bitch, Ling Yuxing? Even his sister's weight couldn't be compared to this slut? Why? Ouyang Mingzhu's fingernails dug into her palms. After a long while, she squeezed out a smile. By the way, Brother Ling, I heard that Ling Long of Hua Xiangrong wants to close the Yaoguang branch and expel all of you. Was it true? Did Hua Xiangrong say, how long could you stay in the Yaoguang branch? Why don't I plead with my uncle to let you stay in the outer yard? Chapter 1311. Lung Yuma couldn't help but laugh out loud. Plead with your uncle? Are you joking with me? Which corner of the school do you want to find Wei Tianming for me to see? Ouyang Mingzhu said angrily. What do you mean? Do you know that my uncle is the chairman of the Council of Students? You dare to slander him. Aren't you afraid that my uncle will punish you? I'm so scared. Lung Yuma laughed coldly. It's a pity that Wei Tianming can't even enter Starry School now. Luo Yu giggled. I forgot to tell you something. Wei Tianming has already been expelled from the Alcade branch by the Ling Long Tower spirit. He can never return. What do you mean? It means that the person who receives the Ling Long wish wishes for Wei Tianming to be expelled from Starry School forever. Impossible, Ouyang Mingzhu suddenly screamed. How is this possible? Don't speak nonsense. Isn't the Ling Long wish sealed in the Alcade branch forever? How could it be that my uncle was expelled from the academy? Chu Moli looked at her meaningfully. So, Miss Ouyang wishes for us and Xiaowu to be expelled? Ouyang Mingzhu's expression froze, turning to the expressionless Ouyang Qing. Tears were already welling up in her eyes. I didn't mean it that way. But why would uncle be expelled? Brother, that's our uncle. They're speaking nonsense, right? Ouyang Qing didn't respond to her at all. Instead, she looked at Mu Yin and the others and asked sincerely, Can you tell me what happened yesterday? Luo Yu twirled an insect-shaped puppet around her fingertip, a cute smile on her delicate face. Two dimples and little canines could be faintly seen. Wei Tianming pretended to be the Ling Long wish to expel us. He even wanted to trap all of us in the 10,000 wailing ghost matrix and kill us. In the end, the real Ling Long wish was to expel Wei Tianming from Starry School forever. Don't you think this is called, those who do evil will bring about their own destruction? No, I think it should be, good and evil will be rewarded. If you don't believe me, look up and see who the heavens spare. I wonder who the heavens will spare next. Miss Ouyang, do you think it's you? Ouyang Mingzhu shook her head in horror. No, it's not me. It has nothing to do with me. Uncle was just carrying out his official duties. Didn't you guys say that? That fake exquisite wish was also made by Hua Xiangrong. It has nothing to do with you. As she spoke, she threw herself over and hugged Ouyang Qing's hand as she cried, Gidge, please help Uncle. He's being wronged. Uncle is the principal of Alioth branch. How can he be expelled from the academy? Ouyang Qing's face, however, did not have the slightest hint of sadness like her. She only said indifferently, This is the result of Ling Long's wish. There's nothing I can do. She broke free from Ouyang Mingzhu and walked towards Ling Yuxing. Before Ling Yuxing could retreat, Ouyang Qing quickly grabbed his hand. Ling Yuxing wanted to struggle angrily, but he heard the man's almost pleading voice, Little Sheng, Let me see if you've been hurt by the 10,000 crying ghosts array. Let me confirm that you're still fine and didn't disappear like before. Chapter 13:12. He was stunned and forgot to struggle. Then, Ouyang Qing pulled him into her arms and hugged him tightly. That tight yet careful hug was as if he was hugging a rare treasure. Ling Yuxing's heart ached. Ouyang Qing, what are you doing? Now that things had come to this, what was the point of acting like this? The man who had looked at him with disgust, the man who had told him to get lost, could it be that he would disappear into thin air? Little Sheng, I will definitely give you an explanation for what happened back then. Trust me one more time. Just one more time. Without waiting for Ling Yuxing to react, she let go of him. He quickly walked in front of the dazed Ouyang Mingzhu and took out his flying sword. Why are you still in a daze? Aren't you going back? Hearing Ouyang Qing talking to her, Ouyang Mingzhu suddenly came back to her senses, her face revealing a terrified and surprised smile. Okay, brother, let's go. Let's go. Sitting on the flying sword, Ouyang Mingzhu looked back at the Yaoguang branch and smiled proudly. Ling Yuxing, so what if you complain again? After all, I am Ouyang Qing's younger sister. Why would he do anything to me? However, this time, he actually failed to drive Ling Yuxing away. Instead, his uncle was killed. How could this be? No, she must think of a way to make that slut, Ling Yuxing, die without a burial ground. In the Alcade branch, Ling Yuxing gently touched his neck, but he only felt something wet. He was stunned. When Ouyang Qing hugged him just now, she buried her face in his neck. Could this be Ouyang Qing's tears? Why would Ouyang Qing cry? After healing the injuries of her fellow apprentices, Mayan started to cultivate with all her might. She wanted to climb to the top of the exquisite list. The Linglong Pagoda was so tall that it pierced through the clouds. No one knew how many floors it had, but so far, only a handful of people had managed to reach the 10th floor of the Linglong Pagoda. Muyan had passed through the 10th floor, but stopped at the 11th floor. Ouyang Qing and Lu Jinhang were on the 12th and 13th floors respectively. These days, Mayan has thought of all kinds of methods, even using her Shun musician skills to challenge the vicious beasts of the 11th floor. But none of them succeeded. This made Mu Yin a little discouraged. Since obtaining the Shun musician skills, she has rarely encountered any troublesome problems in her cultivation. But this obstacle made her feel helpless. Could it be that only by breaking through the gold core stage could he break through the 11th level? After all, Ouyang Qing and Lu Jinhang were both Jindan. However, the problem was that her cultivation method was different from others. All of her advancements were perfect breakthroughs. If he wanted to reach the golden core stage, he had to at least get the perfect golden core cultivation manual. But the problem was that she couldn't find it at all after searching through all the books in the space. When he asked Qiuqiu, she also said that she had forgotten where the books were. After another failure, Mu Yin comes out of the Linglong Pagoda. She is about to board the flying boat and return to the Alcade branch. However, he saw the Academy's public lecture notice at the place where the flying boat was rented. On it was written, X month, X day, X hour, Yuheng Branch Academy will hold a basic alchemy course. Instructor, Wu Yong. Seeing this message, Mu Yan's eyes brightened. She had wanted to learn alchemy for a long time. During the freshman's recuperation period, the Starry School had opened many courses, but none of them had anything to do with alchemy. Now, she finally had an opportunity. Chapter 13:13. The next day, Mu Yin arrived at Yuheng School's Spring Light Hall on time. As soon as she appeared, she attracted everyone's attention. Mu Yin turned around and looked at the group of people following behind her. She said helplessly, I'm just here to learn alchemy. I'll be fine. Why did you follow me? There were many public courses in Starry School. Attending could even increase school points. School points could be exchanged for treasures, pills, and the opportunity to read some precious books in the school of the Emperor's Star. Therefore, most students in Starry School would choose to learn some public courses. However, Mu Yan's seniors and juniors were not interested in these public courses. In addition to being tortured by little martial uncle, his favorite thing was to sneak out to play. Not to mention, it was the most boring alchemy course. Apart from Mu Yan, no one from the Xiaoyao school was interested in the auxiliary type. To them, making pills, crafting weapons, and drawing talismans, they would rather work for Yi Futian Sword Array. Lung Yuma waved her hand and said righteously, "We're here because we're interested in alchemy." Mu Yan almost rolled her eyes. Fourth senior sister, you being interested in alchemy is even stranger than fifth senior brother going out without makeup. Although Ling Yuxing no longer disguised himself as a woman, he cared deeply about his appearance. Therefore, every time he went out, he would dress up properly. His clothes and makeup were much more exquisite than Mu Yan and Lung Yuma's. Hearing Mu Yan's words, the people from the Xiaoyao school could not help but laugh. Ling Yuxing did not feel offended at all. Instead, he laughed like a noble and arrogant young master. After laughing enough, Yun Ruhan could not help but ask, "Junior sister, do you know alchemy?" Mu Yan shook her head. No. At least, she did not know how to make pills on the cultivation continent. In fact, the elixirs that were previously refined in the Yinwu continent can't be considered as real elixirs. I told you that junior sister doesn't know. Junior sister already knows so many things. Drawing talismans, being a musician, healing, fighting, and if she knows alchemy, how are we going to live? They chatted and laughed as they walked in. Many people secretly looked at them, their eyes filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. Now, the people from the Alcade branch were all famous. The 7 of them monopolized the 2 top-notch instructors that everyone envied. With just the strength of 6 people, they dared to contend against the academy supervisor and the Dean Wei Tianming. By the way, speaking of Dean Wei, have you guys heard? Dean Wei is dead. What? Wasn't college Dean Wei expelled from the Starry School by the artifact spirit of the Linglong Pagoda? How could he die? He's a Yuaning Xiuzhe. It's absolutely true. A few days ago, I saw Ouyang Mingzhu cry so much that she almost fainted. Fortunately, senior brother Ouyang was present. The next day, senior brother Ouyang sent Ouyang Mingzhu back to the Wei clan. Senior brother Ouyang is such a good brother. It was said that in order to mourn and take care of Ouyang Mingzhu, they had even given up the opportunity to go to Dragon Soaring Academy as an exchange student. I really envy Ouyang Mingzhu for having such a good brother. Not only is he handsome and powerful, but he also dotes on his sister so much. Ling Yuxing heard the discussions of the people around him. Mu Yan and the others couldn't help but look at him. Chapter 13-14. Ouyang family's matters have nothing to do with me. Where they are, what they are doing, whether they are brothers and sisters, or loving each other, I'm not interested. Mu Yan frowned slightly. Ling Yuxing's face doesn't show any abnormality, and his words are also very free and easy. But she feels that there is a flash of pain and self-mockery in fifth brother's eyes. She is about to speak when a woman's voice suddenly comes to her ears. "Hey, Jun Muyen, there's still Yawang branch. There are seats here." Muyen follows the voice and sees the person who called her. She can't help but raise her eyebrows. Jiang Xinyu? The person who called her is Jiang Xinyu, the intrepid girl of Breaking Mountain School who confessed to youngest martial uncle in Mirror Moon Mountain Range, and later to Yi Liangchen in the Outer Sect. Meeting her eyes, Jiang Xinyu blushes and raises her voice. "This is the best seat. Do you want to come and sit?" Muyen looks around and finds that there are only a few seats left in the entire Spring Sunshine Hall. So, she walks towards Jiang Xinyu. When she gets closer, she finds that there are 2 acquaintances standing next to Jiang Xinyu. "Senior Sister Xinyu, I obviously saw this seat first. It's fine if you take it away, but why do you want to occupy so much? I don't even have a place to sit." The woman who speaks is like a weeping beauty, delicate and pitiful. Her whole person exudes the aura of a little white flower that has been bullied. Who else could it be but Lu Ruoxuan, whom Mu Yin hates the most? What makes Mu Yin even more depressed and angry is that the scars that she made on Lu Ruoxuan's face during the freshman assessment have disappeared. She once again has that delicate face that can deceive men. Mu Yin can't help but roll her eyes. This Lu Ruoxuan's luck is too good. It's just like the female lead's fate mentioned in Bailey Liuin's notes. Female lead's fate? Ha! Mu Yin shows a faint sneer. Sure enough, as soon as Lu Ruoxuan says this, her tears fall, and the surrounding male cultivators immediately show sympathetic expressions. They are also dissatisfied with Jiang Xinyu. But Jiang Xinyu didn't care at all. She pushed Lu Ruoxuan away and sneered, "I don't care if you like it or not. Anyway, this row of unknown spots is reserved by me. First come, first served. Do you understand? This young lady will give it to whoever she likes. Get lost." Standing beside Lu Ruoxuan, Jiang Hofei couldn't help but fly into a rage. Jiang Xinyu, what kind of attitude is this? How could he talk to Shang like that? Why don't you move aside and let me and Shang sit inside? Jiang Xinyu doesn't pay any attention to him and directly calls out to Mayan. Jun Mayan, come in, the most central seat is for you. Jiang Xinyu used to hate Mu Yin, but now she doesn't know why. But the more she looks at her, the more she likes her. Moreover, after looking at that stunning face for a long time, it always made her dizzy, as if her soul had been hooked. Mu Yin faintly smiled and directly squeezed through Lu Ruoxuan and Jiang Hofei, walking towards the place that Jiang Xinyu had reserved for them. Lu Ruoxuan staggers from being squeezed. At the same time, she also sees Mayan, and her charming face immediately distorts. Her voice rises by several degrees. Jun Mayan, what are you doing? Mu Yin turns around and looks at her with a smile that isn't a smile. Nothing. Why did you push me just now? Mayan's smile becomes more leisurely and charming. That was to tell you that a good dog doesn't block the way. Chapter 13-15. Jiang Xinyu slaps the table and laughs. Lu Ruoxuan, I said you're a dog? Why don't you get lost? What if the tutor comes and blocks our view? Lu Ruoxuan's whole body trembles with anger. Every time she meets Mayan, she becomes very, very unhappy, and her face will be trampled underfoot. But this time, she learns from her mistakes. She takes a deep breath and doesn't fight back. Instead, she walks to the remaining seats next to Jiang Xinyu. Although it's a bit on the edge, it's still in the first row, the closest to the tutor's podium. Who would have thought that as soon as Lu Ruoxuan walks over, Jiang Xinyu will whip her? Who said that you can sit in this seat? Lu Ruoxuan widens her eyes in disbelief, and her lips tremble in anger. Jiang Xinyu, don't go too far. Jiang Xinyu snorts coldly and is about to reply, but she suddenly sees a figure coming in from the door. She immediately beckons and shouts, Fatty Zhengyi. Soon, she sees a group of people swaggering over. The one leading them is the little fatty that Mayan had taught a lesson to in the outer courtyard. Mayan thinks for a long time, and vaguely remembers that he seems to be called Zheng Jiabao. After not seeing him for a while, Fatty Zheng has become a little rounder, but his complexion is a lot more rotund than before. The tips of his brows and the corners of his eyes are in high spirits. As soon as she sees the person, Lu Ruoxuan's eyes immediately flash with joy. The expression on her face is even more weak and pitiful. Zheng Gij, long time no see. It's so good to see you again. She smiles as she speaks, but tears fall from her eyes. She looks like a stubborn girl who is being bullied, but is enduring the grievances and not wanting to be found out. When Fatty Zheng sees Lu Ruoxuan and his tears, half of his heart melts. He is about to greet them with good brother, little sister. Suddenly, he catches a glimpse of the cold and furious Jiang Xinyu from the corner of his eye. As soon as he sees Jiang Xinyu, he remembers that cruel teenager, Yi Liangchen. Thinking of Yi Liangchen, Fatty Zheng's complexion suddenly changes. He pushes away Lu Ruoxuan's hand that reaches to grab him and viciously says, Who are you? Who's your brother? Just looking at a pretentious woman like you makes me feel disgusted. Get away from me. Don't even think about getting involved with me. Lu Ruoxuan staggered from the throw. There were still tears on her face, but there was no way for her to cry anymore. She looked at Zheng Little Fatty in disbelief, thinking that she had mistaken him for someone else. Brother Zheng, what's wrong? I'm Ruoxuan, your little sister Xian. Don't you remember me? Zheng Little Fatty hesitated for a moment. Just when Lu Ruoxuan thought that he was in love with her and wanted to grab his hand, Lu Ruoxuan stopped him. Little Fatty Zheng suddenly flung her hand away and said in disgust, "Don't touch me. I've already thought it through. Since you're the woman my big brother hates the most, then you're definitely not a good person. In the future, you'll also be the woman I, Zheng Jiabao, hate the most. I'm warning you, you'd better stay away from me, or don't blame me for beating you up every time I see you." Lu Ruoxuan had never imagined that Zheng Little Fatty would be so heartless towards her. The onlookers couldn't help but ask, "Young Master Zheng, who is your boss? Junior sister Lu is so kind and weak. Why does your boss hate her?" Zheng Little Fatty puts his hands on his hips and shows an incomparably proud smile. My boss's name is Taboo. Don't scare you. Chapter 13:16. His name is Yi Liang Chun. Everyone was quiet for a moment after he said that. Then there was an even louder discussion. Fatty Zheng, what are you bragging about? You haven't seen God Ye's identity until now. How could he be your boss? That's right. If you're lying, you should find someone more credible. Fatty Zheng was anxious and pulled Jiang Xinyu over. Ask her if you don't believe me. Xinyu and I saw Boss Yi together that day. Moreover, Boss Yi even cured his impotence. Of course, he would never say that out loud. Jiang Xinyu's cheeks were red, and her eyes were full of shyness. But under everyone's questioning, she still raised her chin and said, "Of course I've seen Gongzi Yi. He is as steady as jade and as elegant as an immortal. He is the one and only man in the world." That's not right. I've also seen God Yi outside the Linglong Tower on the day of his registration, but his appearance is obviously ordinary. I've also seen God Yi, but he was wearing a mask. Only half of his face was exposed, so he should be a handsome man. The people around them started to quarrel. Everyone was arguing that the Yi Liang Chun they saw was the real person. The 6 people of the Xiaorao sect who were watching this scene were trying to hold back their laughter. They peeked at Mayan from time to time. If this group of people knew that the God Yi they were talking about was their junior sister, who knows how they would feel? Everyone was excited, except for one person. That person was Lu Ruoxuan. When the name Yi Liang Chun appeared on the Linglong list for the first time, she had a bad premonition. Could this Yi Liang Chun be the Yi Liang Chun who made her lose face in Tianguang ruins and fell into a miserable hell? But the Yi Liang Chun in Tianguang ruins was clearly a woman. But then she remembered that Tianguang ruins could change gender and appearance. Lu Ruoxuan's heart was in her throat. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? And now, Fatty Zheng's words also confirmed her guess. Fatty Zheng slapped the table with a face full of vigor. Who is Boss Yi? He is an immortal who is more powerful than senior brother Ouyang. What's so strange about having 1,000 faces? But there is one thing that I must convey on behalf of Boss Yi. Zheng Little Fatty pointed at Lu Ruoxuan and said loudly. Boss Yi said that the woman he hates the most is Lu Ruoxuan. Whoever walks close to Lu Ruoxuan is going against Boss Yi. Did you hear me clearly? Lu Ruoxuan's body was on the verge of collapsing. She was so angry that she almost fainted. However, when the people around her heard this, they really distanced themselves from her and pointed at her. Even the male cultivator who had been pitying her just a moment ago now revealed a look of dread and disgust. Why? Why did Yap Liangshan have to step on her again and again? What did she do wrong? Lu Ruoxuan's tears of anger and grievance flowed down. Jiang Hofei's heart ached when he saw this, but he didn't dare to go against so many people. He could only help her to sit in the back. Not long after, instructor Wu Yong came in, and the public lecture began. Mu Yin listens to Wu Yong's explanation, but her interest wanes. This was because the people who attended public classes usually did not have any foundation in alchemy. Therefore, the course that Wu Yong taught was actually only about refining first and second grade medicinal pills. As for elixirs below the third rank, mine has long been able to refine them. Chapter 13-17. The 6 people from the Xiaorao sect are exactly the same as her. They are not interested in alchemy at all, and they don't understand at all. However, the 7 of them are sitting in the first row, which attracts Wu Yong's attention from time to time. Such a lazy attitude makes Wu Yong's face turn ugly. Even his voice deepens. It seems that a lot of people think that they are so powerful that they don't need to listen to the explanation to be able to refine dawn. Since that's the case, let's start distributing the ingredients. Everyone can try to refine dawn. As Wu Yong speaks, he looks at the 7 people from the Xiaoyao sect. After the class, everyone has to hand over a pill of fasting. If you can't do it, then stay in the alchemy room tonight and don't need to go back. Suddenly, there are ghostly wails and wolf howls. The noise was so loud that it woke up the 7 people from the Xiaorao sect. What happened? Class is over? Luo Yu wipes the saliva from the corner of her mouth and asks in confusion, 6 senior sister, let's go back. Alchemy is not fun at all. Hearing this, Wu Yong's gaze becomes even more unfriendly. Zhang Xinyu glares at them in disappointment. Go back? Why would you go back? I don't think you can go back today. Luo Yu blinks in confusion. The soft hair on the top of her head stands up like a cat that has just woken up. She is indescribably cute. However, this confusion and cuteness only lasts for a few breaths before it turns into a scream of horror. What? Refine pills of fasting before class ends? How is that possible? Eldest senior brother, do you know how to refine dawn? Yun Ruhan bitterly shakes his head. He had just fallen asleep. Lung Yuma's face is even more lifeless. If I eat these elixirs in the middle of the class, will the tutor let us go? Mu Yin yawns and casually gives them the ingredients. It's okay. It's just pills of fasting. I'll refine them for you. Junior sister, don't joke around. Alchemy is not a joke. Anyone can refine it, right? That's right. Furthermore, I heard that it takes at least 2 hours to refine a fasting pill. There's only 3.5 hours left until the end of class. Even if you really know how to refine pills, you'll at most be able to refine your own pills. How could you possibly refine all 7 of us? Little junior sister, if you really know how to refine pills, then finish your own first. Listening to the persuasion of her fellow apprentices, Mu Yin was still neither too fast nor too slow, picking and choosing the elixirs in front of her. The other people in the Spring Sunshine Hall were already nervously refining. Yun Ruhan and the others see that Mu Yin hasn't started refining for a long time, so they guess that she doesn't know how to refine pills at all, but they also feel relieved. At most, he would be grounded for a night. They could even survive a night of little martial uncle sort of Ray. So what was the point of the alchemy room? An hour later, in the Spring Sunshine Hall, a delicate and gentle female voice suddenly rang out. Instructor Wu, I've finished refining the pill. In an instant, everyone's attention was focused on the last row. Lu Ruoxuan stood up with a faint smile on her lotus-like face. She also conveniently glanced at Mu Yin. Wu Yong arrives in front of Lu Ruoxuan, opens her furnace, and sees the 2 pills that are still emitting steam. Chapter 13-18. Lu Ruoxuan said modestly, Teacher, you flatter me. It's because you taught me well. I just followed your instructions. Wu Yong patted her shoulder and asked her to sit down. Then he pointed out, some people don't know how to listen and learn. But some people don't know anything, but they don't even have the attitude to ask for advice. My school doesn't welcome people like that. Wu Yong walked to Mu Yin and the others. He looked disgusted and cold. These words were obviously referring to them. Lu Ruoxuan also came forward at this time, stood beside Mu Yin, and softly said, Mu Yin, do you not know alchemy? Why don't I teach you? It's easy to learn. You'll teach me? Mu Yin raised the corner of her mouth, smiling lazily and mockingly. You think you're worthy? Who allowed you to call me Mu Yin? Do I know you? Please get out of my way. Then she opened the furnace and threw all the elixirs of the 7 people into it. Lu Ruoxuan was choked by Mu Yan's rude words. But when she saw Mu Yan's action, a disdainful smile flashed across her eyes. But on the surface, she said anxiously, how can you put all the elixirs into the furnace at the same time? The furnace will explode because the spiritual power is too heterogeneous. Mu Yin, don't do this kind of stupid thing just because you hate me, okay? If the furnace explodes, the people around you will be hurt. As soon as Lu Ruoxuan said this, the surrounding people retreated in fear. Wu Yong shook his head and sneered. You want to refine 7 elixirs in one furnace? You're overestimating yourself? Zhang Hofei quickly dragged Lu Ruoxuan to the side. Ruoxuan, they treated you like that just now, and you still want to teach them. You're too kind. Lu Ruoxuan teared up. But I don't want to see them hurt because of the furnace explosion. The people around her, who hated Lu Ruoxuan because of Yi Liangqin, couldn't help but have a good impression of her after seeing her act. There were even more people pointing at Mu Yin. Is Jun Mu Yin crazy? She put all 7 elixirs into the furnace at the same time. It's obvious that she doesn't know how to refine elixirs. Just as everyone was discussing animatedly, a burst of fragrant aroma suddenly floated out from Mu Yan's pill furnace. Well, what is this smell? How fragrant! My stomach is growling. So fragrant. It's the smell of a fasting pill, but I've never smelled a fasting pill like this. Why do I seem to smell the fragrant roasted goose? Even Wu Yong, who was ridiculing Mu Yin with disdain, couldn't help but turn his head and walk towards Mu Yin in astonishment. What did you refine? Mu Yin raises her head and meets Wu Yong's shocked eyes. She faintly smiles and says, fasting pill. Isn't that what you taught him, Tutor Wu? What kind of joke was this? Since when did the fasting pill that he had taught to refine emit such an aroma? As time passed, the aroma of the fasting pill became stronger and more alluring. Outside the window, there were even many birds flying down and circling the spring radiance hall, chirping nonstop. There were even a few that greedily wanted to fly towards Mu Yan's furnace, but they were sent flying by Lung Yuma's blade. The entire Spring Sunshine Hall was filled with the sound of students swallowing their saliva. Chapter 13:19. The lid of the furnace flies out, falling to the ground. And almost at this moment, all the fragrance also disappears without a trace. Did the alchemy fail? It must have failed, right? So many elixirs were thrown in at the same time. How could it succeed? Didn't you see the lid explode? But if it failed, what was that fragrance just now? Everyone hurriedly moves closer. The fastest is still Wu Yong. His figure flashes, and he's already in front of the furnace. When he sees the scene inside the furnace, his eyes suddenly widen, almost not daring to believe what he's seeing. He reaches out his hand and slowly pinches out an elixir from inside. This elixir has a lustrous luster, faintly suffused with a sparkling and translucent feeling. Compared to the one that Lu Ruoxuan had just refined, it's clearly not just 1 grade higher. A 3rd-grade fasting pill. How is this possible? Wu Yong's voice trembles. The Dan that I taught can only refine 2nd-grade fasting pills at most. How can you refine 3rd grade? As soon as these words come out, the entire Spring Sunshine Hall explodes again. Zheng Little Fatty is the first to rush over, wanted to see the legendary 3rd-grade fasting pill. Because fasting pills are generally only used by people who train their body and abstain from eating, the ones circulating in the market are generally 1st-grade and 2nd-grade elixirs. 3rd-grade elixirs can't be bought even with Jingshi. Zheng Little Fatty occasionally participates in experiential learning, but the time is long, the place is remote, and he eats a lot. Eating too many ordinary fasting pills can easily accumulate pill poison, and fresh food can't be stored in a chinquan bag for a long time. But if there's a third-grade fasting pill, it's different. He once used a third-grade fasting pill, and after taking it, he didn't feel hungry for a whole 7 days. Zheng Little Fatty pounces over, wanting to snatch the fasting pill from Wu Yang's hand. But when he inadvertently looks down, he sees the furnace that Mayan just used to refine elixirs. He can't help but shout, "Damn, how can there be so many fasting pills?" He sees that there are more than 10 elixirs in the open furnace. Each one is exactly the same as the one in Wu Yang's hand. All of them are third-grade fasting pills. In just a short half an hour, Mayan actually refined 10 third-grade fasting pills in one go. Was this really not a joke? Wu Yang abruptly looks at Mayan. This time, there's no longer any disgust or disgust in his eyes. Only enthusiasm and amazement. Genius. Genius. I actually managed to wait for an alchemy genius. Aya, how could a genius like you go to a place like the Alcade Institution? You should come to our Alioth branch. I guarantee that in at most 10 years, I will definitely let you become a 7th-rank pill master. What a pity. What a pity the academy did not allow students to transfer to another academy. It's such a pity that such a good seedling is left outside. Wu Yong could not help but sigh. Then he could not help but grab Mu Yan's shoulder and asked anxiously, "What did you say your name was just now?" "June? June Mayan, isn't it? I saw that your alchemy technique was too crude and without any technique. What a waste of God's gift. What a waste of God's gift. How about this? Are you willing to learn alchemy under my tutelage? Although I can't take you as my disciple, I can still bring you through the doors of an alchemist." As he spoke, Wu Yong completely forgot that he had just been slapped in the face. He was filled with passion for alchemy and cherished talents. Chapter 13:20. Wu Yong's eyes lit up. "You're interested in alchemy too?" "Of course." Mu Yin smiled. "If I wasn't interested, I wouldn't have come to the public class. I just want to learn about alchemy of the 3rd level and above." Yes, of course. With your talent, what's the point of making 1st or 2nd level alchemy? Isn't that like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife? Wu Yong was so excited that his eyes turned red, and he spun around in circles. "Just you wait, I'll go organize and teach you the pill recipes, spirit medicine's furnace." Right. I'll also prepare a furnace for you." With that, he actually ignored the fact that it was still class time. He waved his hand and told everyone not to hand in any more pills of fasting and left in a hurry. As soon as Wu Yong left, everyone gathered around. Witnessing the dozens of 3rd-level pills of fasting in the furnace, everyone was in awe of Mu Yin. Fatty Zheng said directly, "Jun Mu Yin, Master Jun, can you sell all of these pills of fasting to me? I'm willing to pay 1,000 low-quality crystals for one." This kind of 3rd-level alchemy, even the trash that Mu Yin casually made had such quality. Therefore, she only took out 6 pills and gave them to the disciples of the Xiaoyao school. The rest were sold to Fatty Zheng. The 7 portions of spiritual medicine used to make the pills of fasting were worth a few dozen low-quality crystals at most. But in the blink of an eye, they were sold for tens of thousands of crystals. This scene ignited the atmosphere in the spring sunshine hall again. "Oh my God! I heard that Jun Mine's musician support was so powerful that it allowed the Xiaoyao school to defeat Qi Ming, the Golden Elixir Realm tutor. Now that she also has such great talent in alchemy, wouldn't she be the top support in Starry School?" I didn't think that the #1 support this year would not be from the Alioth branch, but the Alcade branch. Just now, when Lu Ruoxuan made 2 pills, I thought she was amazing. But compared to Jun Mu Yin, the difference is like heaven and earth. The whispers and mockery of the surrounding people entered Lu Ruoxuan's ears, causing her face to turn green and white. The poisonous snake named jealousy was entrenched in her heart more and more. She almost went crazy with hatred. "Jun Mu Yin, Jun Mu Yin, Jun Mu Yin again. Why was it that every time she was around, she would end up in such a miserable state? Lu Ruoxuan had always felt that she was lucky. But every time she meets Jun Mayan, her good luck would turn into bad luck. Embarrassed, Lu Ruoxuan covered her face with her sleeves and wanted to leave. Unfortunately, Jiang Xinyu did not let her go. She suddenly stretched her leg forward and tripped Lu Ruoxuan. Lu Ruoxuan was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Her lips were purple and her nose was bleeding. She was in an indescribable state. Jiang Xinyu looked down from above and laughed. Lu Ruoxuan, what did you just say? I remember that you said that you wanted to teach Mayan alchemy. Why are you running now? Shouldn't you be teaching us how to concoct pills? Zhang Hofei hurriedly rushed over to help Lu Ruoxuan up. He stared at Jiang Xinyu in disapproval. Xinyu, don't go overboard. San ignore her, let's go. Lu Ruoxuan stood up along with Jiang Hofei, her eyes brimming with tears. Her entire body emitted a sorrowful aura. However, when she looked down, her eyes revealed a cold, murderous intent. This murderous intent isn't directed at Mayan, but at Jiang Xinyu. Chapter 13:21. But Jiang Xinyu, this vicious woman, beat her, humiliated her, and trampled on her again and again. If she couldn't make her pay back 10 times or even 100 times, she wouldn't be called Lu Ruoxuan. Mu Yin was calculating the crystals with Zheng Xiaoping when she suddenly felt a creepy malice surrounding her. She suddenly turned around, but couldn't feel anything. She couldn't help but frown in the direction that Lu Ruoxuan left. On the way back to the Alcade branch, the people from the Xiaoyao sect were still confused. Lung Yuma held the third-level fasting pill that Mu Yin gave her, her face dreamy. Little junior sister, can you tell me what you don't know? Mu Yin smiled. I told you I don't know how to wash clothes, cook, or do needlework. So, other than these, you know everything else. Are you fucking human or not? Hysterical roars echoed in the hearts of everyone in the Xiaoyao sect. Luo Yu wiped her face and suddenly couldn't help but laugh. The people in the Starry School all think that Sixth Sister is just an assistant musician with godly talent in alchemy. If they know that she is Yi Liangshun and can even draw talismans, I don't know how scared they will be. Mayan smirks. Actually, she wasn't the best. The best were the Shun musicians. The higher the level of her Shun musician skill, the more clearly she is able to perceive. This was such an all-round inheritance. It covered almost all the cultivation systems. What she had learned was just the tip of the iceberg, far from everything. The flying boat slowly landed in the Alcade branch. A heart-wrenching, lung-splitting scream suddenly reaches Mu Yan's ears. Hearing this voice, her face suddenly changed. Qi Huang. This was the voice of Qi Huang in the space. Little sister, what's wrong? Why do you look so pale? Mu Yan didn't have time to explain. She just gave a perfunctory reply and rushed into the room. Closing the door, she immediately entered the space. Pretty sister, seen her come in. Chiu rushed over crying. Pretty sister, what happened to the demon? The demon won't die, right? Sob, sob, sob. On the vast grassland, a red figure was curled up there. His whole body trembled uncontrollably. The ear-piercing screams from before had disappeared, leaving behind only the low wails of a cub. 7 brilliance. Mayan promptly rushes over and helps the youth up from the grass. Qi Huang, what happened? As soon as he helped him up, the young man's pale and bruised face came into view. Bean-sized beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. His clothes were already soaked in sweat. Mu Yin supports the youth. For the first time, she feels that he is so frail, so slender, so frail. 7 brilliance. 7 brilliance. Don't scare me. What happened to you? June Mayan. Qi Huang grabbed her hand, and his voice was heartbreaking. It hurts, it hurts. I can't stand the pain. When the youth grabbed her hand, it was as if he had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Her fingernails dug into her flesh, causing her to bleed. But Mu Yin doesn't seem to feel the pain at all. Her breathing quickened and her heart burned with anxiety, but she forced herself to calm down. Qi Huang, tell me, how can I help you? She tried to channel her spiritual energy into Qi Huang. Chapter 13:22. After all, Qi Huang is a tool spirit, not a real person. But he's clearly a tool spirit. So why is he in such pain? Play the zither. Play the zither. Qi Huang spits out broken words with difficulty. June. June mine. This deity orders you play the zither. Don't itch at this anxious moment. Mine can't help but be amused. This guy is still putting on airs at a time like this, still jealous of the itchy meat combo. But seeing Qi Huang's painful appearance, Mayan doesn't argue with him this time. Instead, she gently strokes his long hair and softly says, "Okay, if it can alleviate your pain, I'll play the zither for you." With that, she reaches out and the Tian Mo Chin is already in her hands. The sound of the zither is like the gurgling of water, and also like the hands of the most gentle mother. Gently, he caressed Qi Huang's soul, which had been tortured to the point where it was better to die than to live. The trembling body slowly stops spasming. The curled-up youth also gradually stretches out from his lonely and lowly posture. The beautiful face that's soaked in sweat faintly reveals a shallow, satisfied smile. Looking at the youth's sleeping appearance, Mayan breathes a sigh of relief. She originally wanted to stop playing the zither, but she doesn't know why. There's a voice in her heart telling her not to stop, to continue. Mayan only hesitates for a moment. The sound of the zither, which had already slowly stopped, slowly flies in the air again. It's warm and soft, quiet and holy. It's like a touch of light that illuminates the deepest darkness of hell. Xioshin Continent, Netherworld region. The River of Forgetfulness is a river that all immortals in the Netherworld region love, but also fear to the bones. Fear because the River of Forgetfulness, whether it's the river water or the water vapor that evaporates in the air, are all highly corrosive. That corrosion is not only the destruction of the body, but also the infinite torture of the soul. Even if the River of Forgetfulness only touches a little bit, the pain is not something that ordinary people can bear. And true love, because the dark sacred flame on the River of Forgetfulness is the symbol of the rise and fall of the entire Netherworld region. The more vigorously the dark sacred flame burns, the more power the people of the Netherworld region can obtain. On the contrary, once the dark sacred flame weakened, their strength would decline day by day. All the people of the Nether region hoped that the dark sacred flame could burn. But a long, long time ago, the dark sacred flame was on the verge of extinguishing. Some people even tried to sacrifice themselves to get close to the River of Forgetfulness and ignite the dark holy flame. However, before he could even touch the holy flame, his soul had already dissipated. In these days, the dark holy flame that should have been extinguished had actually begun to reignite. The people of the Nether domain were going crazy with joy. The sounds of people singing and dancing, laughing and talking could be heard everywhere. Even the Lord of the Netherworld domain had an excited smile on his face. They were all waiting for that moment. With the dark sacred flame truly ignited, their strength returned to its peak. At that time, they would have the ability to contend with the polar domain for hegemony under the heavens, and the ability to ascend to the throne. However, when everyone in the Nether realm was celebrating, but no one heard the heart-wrenching cries in the River of Forgetfulness, as well as the pain-filled moans that were being suppressed. Chapter 13:23. Chiwen flew high up in the sky and looked down at the young man who was immersed in the River of Forgetfulness. She begged again and again, "Master, please come out of the River of Forgetfulness. You will die if you continue like this." However, the person in the River of Forgetfulness did not seem to hear her at all. Chiwen desperately wanted to rush down, but when she got close to the River of Forgetfulness, a soul-tearing pain came over it, causing it to shriek and retreat in a sorry state. Chiwen turned and rushed to the entrance of the River of Forgetfulness. The entrance of the River of Forgetfulness was two towering gates of Yellow Springs. Chiwen rushed to the guards of the gates of Yellow Springs, and her body suddenly enlarged. "Hurry up and open the gates of Yellow Springs. Master can't hold on any longer." However, the two guards replied indifferently. "The Domain Master has ordered that before young Master advances, we must not open the gates of Yellow Springs." Hearing this reply, Chiwen was about to go crazy. "Don't you know that young Master was born from the River of Forgetfulness and grew up immersed in thousands of spirits? Every time he advances, it is like peeling off his skin and pulling out his bones, burning his heart and soul. How much suffering did he go through to reach his current cultivation? Do you understand?" Chiwen enunciated each and every word as she recalled the past in her mind. Her vision blurred uncontrollably. Domain Lord. Domain Lord clearly knows how difficult it is for Master to advance further, how difficult it is to ascend to the heavens, how difficult it is to descend to the King of Hell. Master is also his son. How could he do this to Master? "Open the gates of Yellow Springs. I will go find the Domain Master. I will plead with him." However, the two guards remained indifferent and did not seem to be moved at all. Chiwen used her huge dragon body to hit the gates of Yellow Springs, but the gates did not budge at all. Her body was covered in wounds and blood, but she did not feel anything. Because her heart was filled with grief, pain, and unwillingness, she almost forgot the pain on her body. Just as Chiwen was in despair, she suddenly heard the faint sound of a zither. Almost at the same time, the dark holy flame that was slowly extinguishing by the River of Forgetfulness showed signs of reigniting. Chiwen was stunned. Zither sound? Why would there be zither sound in the River of Forgetfulness? Was she hallucinating? Low, uncontrollable moans of pain came from the River of Forgetfulness. "Master!" Chiwen suddenly turned around and flew back to the River of Forgetfulness. It ignored the corrosion of the River of Forgetfulness and desperately circled downwards. "Master, Master, how are you?" Suddenly, the hoarse and weak voice of the young man came from below, the sound of a zither. "Is there the sound of a zither?" Chiwen was stunned. "Master, you also heard the zither? Was that my imagination? Why do I feel like this zither sound was played by Mei Yin? No, I'm really crazy. Mei Yin is still in the cultivation continent. How could her zither music appear here? In the River of Forgetfulness." The young man in thin clothes slowly raised his head, revealing a face that was as pale as snow but could captivate all living things in the world. The corners of Qingzi's cracked lips curled up slightly, revealing a warm, hopeful, and humble smile. He slowly reached out his hand that was submerged in the River of Forgetfulness. He was as thin as a match, shriveled and cracked, and one could faintly see the bones beneath his skin. Chapter 13:24. Perhaps I also have something that I want to grasp. 3 days later. The light of the Nether sacred flame soared into the sky, lighting up half the sky. The entire cultivation continent was shaken. The Nether holy flame was reignited. That also meant that there might be a real Nether Saint Emperor in the Netherworld. Polar Domain. Is the Netherworld Saint Emperor really that powerful? Hanyi asks curiously. Elder Chong stroked his beard and sighed. Looking at the current situation in the cultivation continent, the southern Hades, the North Pole region, and the demon race at the bottom of the hidden abyss, Hanyi couldn't help but sneer. It said that it's a tripartite alliance, but even if the Netherworld realm and the demons join forces, they still wouldn't be a match for our polar domain. Yeah, right now, my polar domain is the overlord, and that's because our polar domain has Juanshan. Elder Chong said. It was Lord who used his indisputable strength to crush the entire continent, allowing our polar domain to become the supreme ruler of the Xioshin continent. But do you know that a long, long time ago, when the Netherese sacred flame was burning and the Nether Saint Emperor was in control of power, the Nether region was the power that stood at the peak of the three realms? Han Yi and Ingmei look at each other, their expressions somewhat incredulous. Is the Netherese sacred flame really that powerful? Elder Chong shook his head. It's not the underworld Ean's sacred flame that's powerful, but the netherworld's sacred spirit's inheritance that the underworld Ean's sacred flame brought with it. Supposedly, so long as one obtains the inheritance of the netherworld divine spirit, one's cultivation speed would advance by leaps and bounds. Moreover, one would be able to touch the secrets of the primordial Grand Tao in a short period of time. Coming into contact with the secrets of the primordial Grand Tao represented that one could transcend the mortal world and truly ascend to immortality. It would be a piece of cake for him to dominate the Xiaoxing continent. Han Yi also can't help but become anxious, then in the netherworld realm, who ignited the dark in holy flame this time. Will he become Junshang's opponent? As he's speaking, the palace doors open, and Di Mingju's figure slowly walks out from inside. "Greetings, Lord!" The few of them hurriedly knelt down and paid their respects. "Junshang, what's the situation in the nether realm?" Han Yi couldn't help but ask. They all knew that Junshang was in the Soaring Sky main hall to discuss matters with the various hall masters of the polar domain. The main reason was the reigniting of the dark Ean's sacred flame. Di Mingju says faintly, someone advanced in the river of forgetfulness and triggered the dark Ean's sacred flame to reignite. Advancing in the river of forgetfulness? Is that person crazy? Han Yi sucks in a mouthful of cold air. Junshang, do you know who is so valiant that they could actually endure the river of forgetfulness's water burning their heart and corroding their bones, flaying their skin and refining their soul, and even advance in it? Di Mingju slightly narrows his eyes, not answering for a long time. After a long while, he said slowly, according to the news from the Nether Realm, it was Yin Yuani who obtained the inheritance of the Holy Spirit. Yin Yuani? Wasn't that the only son of the current domain lord of the Nether region? He is the future Holy Emperor of the Netherworld? Elder Chong can't help but look at Di Mingju. Junshang, is there a problem? Di Mingju slowly twirls his wine cup, then says, Yin Yuan Ibn Jun once met him. Unless I'm wrong, with his talent, there's no way he can survive the corrosion of the river of forgetfulness, let alone activate the dark in holy flame. Elder Chong and Han Yi stare blankly. Junshang, you mean? This news is false? Then who was it that triggered the dark in holy flame? Di Mingju slowly lowers his eyes and puts the wine cup in his hand on the table. Chapter 1325. 7 days. Di Mingju said in a low voice, I will stay in the Xiaoxing continent for another 7 days. If I can't find out the true master of the dark in holy flame after 7 days, seal the border of the Netherworld domain. Yes, Netherworld domain. The gate of Underworld slowly opened. Inside the gate was a dark and gloomy hell. Outside the gate was a flourishing joy. And a young man in a thin white undershirt slowly walked from the darkness into the light, from the dead silence into the bustling. The guards standing on both sides of the gate of Underworld stared at the young man's perfect side profile. What surged in their hearts was not amazement or admiration, but an inexplicable, bone-deep fear. Little Xiao, you finally succeeded in your promotion. A gentle woman's voice came from not far away. The guards on both sides immediately felt that the cold and gloomy aura disappeared without a trace. Although there was no smile on the face of the young man who passed through the gate of Underworld, there was a trace of warmth in his eyes. The gate of Underworld slowly closed behind him. Luo Yunxiao only glanced back, then quickly walked to a woman dressed in luxurious clothes not far away and bowed. Mother! The woman looked at him kindly, her eyes full of tenderness. Little Xiao, you've suffered a lot in this promotion. Luo Yunxiao's eyes were soft, and there was a faint childish look in his eyes. However, Before he could speak, he saw a tall and dignified man descend from the sky. As soon as this man appeared, the guards of the gate of Underworld and the attendants of the luxurious woman immediately knelt on the ground. "Greetings, Lord." Luo Yunxiao also slowly knelt down. "Greetings, Father." The person who came was the Lord of the Netherworld domain, Wuji. And this luxurious woman was the wife of the Lord of the Netherworld domain, and also the Queen of the Netherworld domain, Fu Yushu. Luo Yunxiao called these two people father and mother. But his surname was not Yin. Wuji glanced at Luo Yunxiao coldly and suddenly raised his hand. Luo Yunxiao felt that the scene had changed, and she was already in Wuji's bedroom. In the whole room, besides Luo Yunxiao, there was only Fu Yushu. "Take off your clothes and let me see your back," Wuji coldly ordered. Luo Yunxiao didn't resist. She unbuttoned her clothes and turned around. The young man's back was tall, slender, and white like jade. Every inch of his body was perfect like a work of art. But in the center of his back, there was a dark red pattern. The pattern was like a red spider lily, but it also looked like a ball of blazing flame. Seeing this pattern, Wuji's cold eyes suddenly lit up with a resplendent light. His expression changed from indifference and disgust to excitement. "Holy Spirit, it's really the Netherworld Holy Spirit, although it's not complete. Come out!" Luo Yunxiao tilted her head slightly and saw a handsome young man walking out from the corner of the room. His eyebrows were like swords, his eyes were like stars, his facial features were handsome, and his posture was tall and straight. He could really be considered a handsome man. Compared to Luo Yunxiao's appearance, it was far inferior. The man glanced at Luo Yunxiao's face, and his eyes burned with jealousy. However, when his gaze fell on the dark red pattern, his jealousy instantly turned into greed and fervor. He walked quickly to Wuji. "Yuan greets father and mother. Quickly get up." Wuji and Fu Yushu hurried forward to help him up, looking at him with concern and love. Chapter 13:26. "Have you taken the Yuanhua elixir that mother prepared for you on time?" Luo Yunxiao looked at the mother and son's filial piety and the happiness of a family. She stood alone at the side, without even putting on her clothes. But her expression was indifferent, accustomed to it. After a while, Wuji said, "Yunxiao, come here. I want to take the Netherworld Holy Spirit out and put it into Yuani's body before it completely fuses with you." Hearing Wuji's words, Yuani's eyes immediately lit up. Although Luo Yunxiao had expected this, her hands that were buttoning her clothes could not help but tremble. "Little Xiao." Fu Yushu walked up to him with tears in her eyes, looking at him with pity and pain. "Little Xiao, don't blame mother for being biased, but your brother has suffered so much since he was young, and it's all because of you. Little Xiao, you are so talented. Even without the Netherworld Holy Spirit, you can definitely break through to Immortal Venerable. But your brother is different. He really needs the help of the Holy Spirit." Luo Yunxiao looked at the tears, hope, and pain in her eyes, and finally slowly lowered her eyes. "Okay, I promise." Outside the Nether Palace, there was a dense crowd of people. Everyone in the Nether Realm was waiting for an answer. Did the Netherworld Holy Flame reignite? Did the inheritance of the Holy Spirit reappear? In the end, would their Nether Realm be able to welcome a true Saint Emperor? The huge palace gate slowly opened. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then they all knelt on the ground and shouted like a tsunami, "Greetings to the Lord, Queen of the Underworld, and Young Master." High up on the Immortal Promotion platform, there were three extremely graceful figures. The current Lord of the Nether Realm, Wuji, Queen of the Underworld, Fu Yushu, and Yuani, who was recognized as the next Lord of the Nether Realm. Everyone looked eagerly at Yuani, because they all knew that Yuani had been in seclusion since a few months ago. And the reignite of the Netherworld Holy Flame began from Yuani's seclusion. Could it be that the new Saint Emperor of the Nether Realm was their young master Yuani? as if to confirm their guess. Yuani turned his back and slowly took off his clothes. On his back, a dark red flower pattern that looked like a red spider lily appeared in front of everyone. Almost as soon as the pattern appeared, everyone in front of the Nether Palace felt a powerful force sweep through every inch of their meridians, causing their dantians and meridians to churn. That's the Dark Ean's sacred flame. It's the symbol of the Dark Ean's sacred flame. Young Lord Yuan, he is our future Saint Emperor. That's great. With the appearance of the Saint Emperor, it's only a matter of time before our Nether Realm dominates the Xiaoxian continent. Long live the Nether Realm. Long live the Sage Emperor. Everyone outside the Nether Palace knelt on the ground again and chanted, "Long live His Majesty." They all had excited and eager smiles on their faces, as if they could already see the future of the Nether Realm dominating the Xiaoxian continent. Almost at the same time, in the most remote western palace of the Nether Realm, Chiwen looked at the pale-faced young man lying on the bed. Her bell-like eyes were filled with anger and heartache. "Master, how could they treat you like that? You know how much pain and weakness you will feel if I take away the Holy Spirit in your body." Chapter 13:27. His back, which was originally as smooth as jade and had perfect lines, had now become a mess of flesh and blood. When the Holy Spirit could not be transferred smoothly, Yin Wuji had carved out the pattern from Luo Yunxiao's back. Chiwen felt a heart-wrenching pain just by looking at the wound. However, the youth lying on the bed had an indifferent expression, as if he could not feel the pain at all. Or perhaps he had already gotten used to this kind of pain. After the powder was sprinkled, the wound on Luo Yunxiao's back corroded bit by bit, and then healed bit by bit. What kind of torture was it to have one's bones broken and one's skin peeled off, hovering between life and death? Chiwen stared blankly at Luo Yunxiao's clothes and bedding that were drenched in sweat. His wet long hair hung down and stuck to his bitten lips. Blood flowed along the ends of his hair and onto the bed, blooming a beautiful red. Chiwen could not bear it anymore. Tears fell from her big eyes. "Master, you are clearly their son. How could the Domain Master and Underworld Empress treat you like this?" Luo Yunxiao quietly lowered his eyes, his expression calm. He did not even let out a moan. "Right, I remember." Chiwen suddenly recalled something as she shouted. "Mei Yin refined many talismans back then and gave many of them to you, Master. I remember Mei Yin said that some talismans had a numbing effect." As Chiwen spoke, she hurriedly took out the talismans from Luo Yunxiao's storage device. Mu Yin had given little martial uncle a lot of talismans. Or it should be said that the talismans she drew on a daily basis were accumulated to the point that it was impossible to calculate. Apart from the ones sold in Tianguang ruins, the rest were all given to the Xiaoyao sect. Basically, there were dozens or even hundreds of talismans. Some of them were refined according to the templates given by Luo Yunxiao. But there were also some very strange talismans that were created by Mu Yin. The numbing talismans that Chiwen dug out had very strange talisman markings. It could be said that even Luo Yunxiao had never seen or heard of them. Chiwen took out a numbing talisman and couldn't help but sigh. But no matter how talented Mei Yin is in drawing talismans, she can only use the most ordinary spiritual power. This kind of spiritual power will not work on you, Master. Although she said that, Chiwen still burned a talisman in her claws and pressed it on Luo Yunxiao's wound. However, Luo Yunxiao felt her body lighten almost as soon as the talisman was attached. The pain of having his skin peeled and his bones broken seemed to have left him in an instant. All that was left was the peace and tranquility after the storm. Luo Yunxiao reached out and took a tranquilizer talisman. She stared blankly at the yellow paper in her hand for a long time. He then closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Chiwen looked at the side of the young man's face, who was sleeping soundly. After a long time, she finally cursed. It actually worked. Me The Nether Realm celebrated for 3 days and 3 nights. During these 3 days, no one came to visit Luo Yunxiao. However, the wound on Luo Yunxiao's back had finally healed. Luo Yunxiao didn't suffer much in the next few days because of the anesthetic talisman. Chiwen looked at her master, whose expression and spirit had returned to normal, and excitedly jumped up and down on the bed. Chapter 13:28. He missed Mei Yan, and he missed the people of the Xiaorao sect. The immortal cultivation continent was high above mortals, and the Nether Realm stood at the top of the immortal cultivation continent. But to Chiwen, it was not as interesting as being close to those noisy youths in the small branch of the Starry School. Even Luo Yunxiao's eyes flashed with a faint smile. "We will return in 2 days," he said. Return. Just then, an excited voice came from outside the door. "Greetings, Domain Lord." Very quickly, someone ran in hurriedly and looked at Luo Yunxiao with a face full of smiles and excitement. "Young Master Xiao, the Domain Lord is here to see you. This is the first time the Domain Lord has taken the initiative to see you. Quickly go out and welcome the Domain Lord." "Young Master Xiao, you must please the Domain Lord this time. Who knows, your position might rise. Although young Master, he has received the Divine Spirit's inheritance and is definitely the Divine Emperor of the Nether Realm. You are still the Domain Lord's son. But you are the son of the Domain Lord after all. Perhaps you can be made a Palace Lord or a Divine General." The servant chattered nonstop. On the surface, he seemed to be persuading, but his eyes were full of greed and desire for power. However, his voice came to an abrupt halt when he met Luo Yunxiao's indifferent and cold eyes. His face was also flushed. His expression was one of awe, amazement, and infatuation. Although young Master Xiao was also the young master of the Nether Realm, very few people knew of his existence. The Domain Lord and the Nether Empress both treated him as an invisible person. Even the Nether Realm's default surname of Yin was not allowed to be given to him. Luo Yunxiao's surname was Luo after his master, who had passed away long ago. But young Master Zhao's peerless appearance and elegant bearing were not something that anyone could ignore. So even though his situation was so desolate, very few people dared to bully him in the Nether Realm. But the servant felt that the young Master Xiao, who had returned this time, was more awe-inspiring than ever before. It was even frightening. "Father." Luo Yunxiao slowly bowed to the man in the room. Yin Wuji turned around, and his gaze fell on his face. A complicated expression flashed in his eyes. There was shock, disgust, jealousy, and a hint of fear. However, when Luo Yunxiao raised her head, Yin Wuji had regained his usual aloof and indifferent appearance. "How are your injuries?" Luo Yunxiao raised her head in surprise. He really hadn't expected that Yin Wuji would actually care about his injuries. "Father, I'm fine." After a pause, he continued, 3 days later, "I want to return to the cultivation continent." Yin Wuji frowned and seemed to want to say something, but he did not object in the end. He quickly changed the topic. "There's something I want to tell you." "Do you still remember the engagement between the Nether Realm and the demon race?" Luo Yunxiao was stunned. Because the polar domain was the largest, the Netherworld realm and the demon race had guards. Therefore, several decades ago, the Netherworld realm and the demon race had indeed set up a marriage contract under the hidden abyss. A moment later, Luo Yunxiao said, 10 years ago, the demon lord who made a marriage contract with my nether realm has already died. Isn't that marriage contract already invalid?" Yin Wuji laughed softly, his expression full of disdain. The agreement back then was that the children of the Nether Realm and the royal family of the demon race would enter into a marriage alliance. The sudden death of the demon lord was merely a change of a child of the royal family. Chapter 13:29. But as long as this marriage contract exists, the alliance between the demon race and the nether region will continue to be stable, until Yuani truly grasps the inheritance of the sacred spirit and steps on the polar domain. His gaze slowly turned to Luo Yunxiao, his face revealing a fatherly gentleness. For the future of the nether region, for your brother to become the Saint Emperor, you must marry the daughter of the demon lord. In the spirit pet space, Chiwen roared in anger. She's the daughter of the demon lord, who has wandered somewhere and whose fate is unknown. Yet she wants you, master, to marry her. Why? Why? Why doesn't he let Yuani fulfill the marriage contract? They're going too far. They're going too far. Wuji, of course, knew that his request was going too far. Once a marriage contract was made in the Shoshin continent, it was a contract approved by the heavenly Tao. Once it was broken, there would be punishment. The marriage contract between the nether region and the demon race was only a mutual benefit, a temporary compromise. There would be a day when the alliance between the nether region and the demon race would collapse, and they would become like fire and water. At that time, the two parties to the marriage contract would become complete sacrifices. Someone had to be the sacrifice, but it definitely wasn't his precious son, Yuani. Not to mention, it was unknown whether the daughter of the demon lord was dead or alive. If the marriage contract was made and he couldn't find her, Luo Yunxiao would never be able to marry a wife in his life. Wuji looked at Luo Yunxiao quietly. Even if he knew this request was too much, he believed that his son wouldn't refuse him. Ever since he was young, no matter how absurd or harsh the request was, as long as it was something he and the Nether Queen requested, he would do anything to achieve it. Even if it was to take away the inheritance of the sacred spirit from his body, he would agree. What about a mere marriage contract? However, just as Wuji was waiting for the words, "Everything is up to father," he found that the other side was silent. The young man who had always been calm and submissive had unknowingly clenched his fists. In one of his palms, he tightly gripped a piece of talisman paper. That talisman paper had been soaked in his sweat and pierced, but he didn't feel it. Yunxiao. Wuji frowned impatiently. Luo Yunxiao abruptly raised her head and stared fixedly into Wuji's eyes. She said word by word, "I don't agree." "What did you say?" Wuji could not believe his ears. "I said I don't agree to this marriage." Luo Yunxiao's tightly clenched fist had already loosened. Her fingertips gently rubbed the damaged talisman paper in her palm. She slowly and clearly replied, "Father, I can agree to any of your requests, but this is the only thing I cannot agree to." With that, he bowed slightly, turned around, and left the room. Wuji looked at his departing figure and could not recover his wits for a while. After a while, his face suddenly became so gloomy that it could drip water. "Luo Yunxiao, you're actually rebelling against me." These words were said through gritted teeth, but there was also a deep fear in them. Wuji's lips curled into a cold smile. "You don't agree to this marriage? Heh, this is not up to you." Arcade Branch. Chi Huang slept all the way until the evening of the second day. Mine is worried about whether or not there's anything wrong with his body. Chapter 1330. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitches. What dragonfire pill? I've never heard of it. Chi Huang's skin is translucent, so pale that it's almost transparent. When he tries to get up from the ground, his hands and feet are still a little weak. But when he looks up at Mu Yan, his expression is very annoying. Ben Zun said that you're ignorant. Forget it. Ben Zun won't lower himself to your level. This is the Dan recipe for the dragon fire pill. Hurry and refine it for Ben Zun. With that, he turns his hand over, and there's a piece of paper in his slender fingertips. Mu Yan takes the paper. She hasn't read it yet, but she really wants to slap him on the forehead with it. This brat, he just came back from the gates of hell, and his skin is itching again? But before she can slap him, Chi Huang's body shakes as if he can't support himself, and he falls to the ground again. "Chi Huang!" Mu Yan jumps in fright and quickly steps forward to support him. I'll continue to play the zither for you. No, no need. Chi Huang gasps. I told you to refine the dragonfire pill for Ben Zun. To be able to refine medicine for Ben Zun. It's your honor. Mu Yin rolls her eyes. Yes, yes, yes. Honorable Lord Chi Huang, to be able to refine pills for you. This little one is really flattered. Then can you tell me now? What's the matter with you? Why are you suddenly in so much pain and so weak? Chi Huang frowns slightly. His eyes are perplexed, deep, and there's a trace of imperceptible fear. When he raises his head to meet Mu Yan's worried gaze, that fear disperses, turning into wisps of warmth. Such warmth makes his heart sour and sweet, as if he's soaked in a sweet and sour juice. He hasn't felt that kind of feeling in 10,000 years. It's like suddenly he no longer feels lonely, cold, crazy, and desperate. Chi Huang. Hearing Mu Yan's question again, he shakes his head. I don't know, maybe. Chi Huang pauses, slightly lowering his eyes. His voice is low, almost silent. Maybe. There's not much time left. Well, not much time left. Chi Huang jerks his head up and fiercely glares at Mu Yan. It's all because you're useless. You still can't repair the Tian and Mo Qin. Forget it. Forget it. I am a magnanimous person. I will not bicker with you. Quickly go and refine the dragonfire pill for me. Mind gives him a push and directly throws him to the ground. Without hesitation, he turned around and left the space. Motherfucker, this brat. Whoever cares about him is a fucking idiot. The next day, Mu Yan said goodbye to the people of the Xiao Yao school and entered the Danyang mountain range. Chi Huang's gloomy voice could be heard from time to time. What kind of damned academy is this? What kind of damn bazaar is this? I can't even buy such vulgar and common spiritual herbs. Jun Mayan, you can't even gather these elixirs. How can you be so poor? Hearing this, Mu Yan simply wants to laugh. The inner core of the fire cloud unicorn, the fire essence vine, the leaf fire spirit flower. These spirit herbs that were worth tens of thousands of crystals were priceless, but in Lord Seven Brilliance's eyes, they were only vulgar and ordinary playthings. Furthermore, the spirit medicines that were required for the fire dragon pellet, even if they could be bought from the market or the academy, the price would be exorbitantly high. Mine had to spend almost all of her current net worth to barely scrape it together. This guy actually dares to despise her for being poor. Chi Xiao Huang, why don't you go to heaven and stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun? Chapter 1331. The sound of the zither reverberates through the mountains and forests. The flowers and trees on the mountains sway gently, as if they've all come alive in an instant. Myriad plants resonating. As the sound of the zither spreads, the vegetation awakens. All the information about the spirit plants within 100 miles is transmitted into Mayan's mind. It's as if a map is formed in her mind, and the location of all the spirit herbs is marked. Mayan slowly opens her eyes and gently touches a spirit plant that's gently swaying beside her, even rubbing against her palm. She smiles, gets up, and walks in one direction. Because of the feedback from the myriad plants resonating on the distribution of spirit herbs, Mayan quickly finds a lot of spirit herbs. But a large part of the spirit herbs are nadins or blood of spirit beasts, which can't be easily found by relying on the myriad plants resonating. Suddenly, the roar of a vicious beast reaches her ears. Even the earth seems to tremble. A powerful and ruthless pressure spreads out. The strength of this vicious beast is actually comparable to that of a gold core stage. A few wild rabbits and pheasants in the bushes were so frightened that they all fled, panic-stricken and uneasy. The roar is getting closer and closer. Ordinary people might have already fled in panic, but Mayan's eyes are bright, and her face is filled with joy. She strides towards the direction of the sound. If she's not mistaken, this should be the sound and breath of the fire cloud unicorn. She was worried about not being able to get the fire cloud unicorn's Naiden. This is really wearing out iron shoes in fruitless search, only to find it by chance. Mayan rushes for a moment, and soon sees the huge fire cloud unicorn with flames all over its body. However, to her surprise, there's a teenager running wildly in front of the fire cloud unicorn. The teenager looks up and meets Mayan's gaze. He stares blankly for a moment, then seems to think of something. He abruptly changes direction and continues to run desperately. Mayan raises her eyebrows. This doesn't want to implicate me? Perhaps it's because the speed slows down when it changes direction, so the fire cloud unicorn finally catches up with the teenager. The teenager looks flustered, tripping over his feet and falling to the ground. His face is pale, and his eyes are filled with panic as he helplessly watches the fire cloud unicorn's huge palms strike down. He can only close his eyes in despair. However, the expected pain doesn't come. The teenager only hears a loud bang, and grass and dust fly all over him. His body shivered, and he opened his eyes with trembling eyes. The flaming cloud unicorn, which had been baring its fangs and brandishing its claws just a moment ago, had already fallen to the ground, barely breathing. On the back of the gigantic beast stood a slender young girl. The sunlight shone on the girl's white dress. But no matter how white her dress was, it couldn't be whiter than her sparkling, translucent, porcelain-like skin. Her peach blossom-shaped eyes narrowed slightly, and the shimmering light within them was faintly discernible, causing her peerlessly beautiful features to seem even more captivating. The young man's pupils constricted, his heart thumping nonstop. Suddenly, he felt his breathing quicken, and his body softly fell to the ground. Mu Yin killed the fire cloud unicorn and was about to take its night. The young man who was being chased by the flaming cloud unicorn suddenly fell to the ground, his face pale and his body twitching. It can't be, the palm just now didn't hit him. Mu Yin quickly helps him up and clasps his wrist to feel his pulse. Qi Huang's mocking voice came from the space. Where did this kid come from? He couldn't have been scared to death, right? The spirit body delicately checked his pulse, and the young man's physical condition was clearly transmitted into his mind. Chapter 1332. What a strange illness. The youth's heart is very weak, and there are signs of blockage. So much so that his lips and fingernails are slightly purple. But if it's just an ordinary heart problem, Mu Yin wouldn't say it's strange. The youth's biggest problem is that his soul doesn't seem to be compatible with his body. In other words, only half of his soul is compatible with his body, while the other half is like duckweed, ready to break away from his body at any time. Mu Yin takes out a piece of talisman paper and burns it, pressing it on the youth's chest. Then, she takes out silver needles and inserts them into the youth's major acupuncture points. As the healing spiritual power seeps into the youth's body, he lets out a low moan and opens his eyes. Because he was chased by the fire cloud unicorn, he's covered in dirt. So the youth is in a sorry state, and his original appearance can't be seen. But when he opens his eyes, Mu Yin finds that the youth has a pair of eyes that are as bright as stars. Clear and bright, clear and lustrous. Just like the world's cleanest and purest glass beads. His thick and long eyelashes tremble, and his line of sight focuses on Mu Yan's face. The youth's eyes suddenly brighten. Little sister, did you just kill the fire cloud unicorn? That's a rank 7 spirit beast, and you actually killed it in an instant. You're too amazing. Mu Yin smiles but doesn't respond. Instead, she asks, how do you feel now? The youth stares blankly, as if only now remembering to feel his heart. Then his eyes widen in shock. So comfortable. I've never felt so comfortable. Little sister, did you cure me? Mu Yin shakes her head. It's just a temporary reprieve. I'm not sure if I can cure your illness. The youth's illness is very complicated, and a heart problem is not easy to treat. In addition, his soul and body are not compatible, causing his body to be very weak. Ordinary treatment methods could cost him his life if he was not careful. But I've looked for many doctors, and none of them can make me feel as comfortable as little sister. The youth blinks, looking at Mu Yin with eyes full of worship. Little sister, are you a doctor? You can say that. Mu Yin replied casually, as she returned to the side of the fire cloud unicorn and took out the knight inside. Seeing this, the young man hurriedly ran over and took out a translucent vessel from his storage device. He cut open the fire cloud unicorn's heart and filled the entire bottle with its still hot blood. Mine doesn't stop him. Although she was the one who killed the fire cloud unicorn, it was the young man who lured it here. There was nothing wrong with him wanting to take something and leave. Who would have thought that after the youngster finished packing the beast blood, he would immediately jolt his buttocks and run over to Mu Yin. Little sister, this is for you. The fire cloud unicorn's heart blood was the best medicine when it was still warm, and it could be sold for a lot of crystals. This vessel can ensure that your blood won't turn cold for 3 months. Take it. Give it to me? Mu Yin was really surprised this time. Why give it to me? The fire cloud unicorn was killed by little sister, and my life was also saved by little sister. Of course, I have to give this to little sister. The youth had a matter-of-fact expression on his face. Regardless of whether Mu Yin was willing or not, he directly stuffed it into her hands. Mu Yin hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she still put the bottle away. Thank you. The youth immediately smiles incomparably brightly. Chapter 1333. Your body is clearly so weak. Why did you come to the depths of Danyang mountain range? Isn't this courting death? The youth blushes, lowering his head in embarrassment. After a while, he takes out a small white tiger from his chinkoan bag. The furry little tiger is especially cute, soft and small, only the size of 2 palms. When it was carried out, it used its claws to rub its eyes, letting out small whimpering sounds. Even if Mayan isn't a furry lover, nor is she a soft-hearted little girl, she can't help but feel a bit of fondness for this little tiger. I accidentally picked up this snow spirit tiger at the foot of Danyang Mountain. The youth strokes the little tiger's head, his voice gentle. It seems to have been separated from its mother, wandering alone at the foot of the mountain, and was almost shot to death, so pitiful. I know that the snow spirit tiger's nest is deep in the Danyang mountain range, so I wanted to bring it back and reunite with its mother. In order to reunite the little tiger with its mother, he doesn't even care about his own life? Mine simply wants to sigh at this youth's stupidity. She thought that in the Xiozhen continent, the strong are used to the weak being prey to the strong and deceiving each other. Even her family Xiaoqi, who looks cute on the outside, is extremely black-bellied on the inside. Whoever wants to bully Luo, you will definitely be skinned alive. She didn't expect that there would be such a naive and sweet youth in this world. The youth hurriedly explains, in fact, it was the little tiger that saved my life at the beginning. If it hadn't appeared, I would have accidentally stepped into the trap. So in order to repay the favor of saving my life, I have to send it back. Saying that, he looks at Mayan with some embarrassment and expectation. Big sister, can I follow you until we find the snow spirit tiger's nest? I promise I won't give you any trouble. Mayan frowns slightly. The youth immediately says, Big sister, are you looking for elixirs in the Danyang mountain range? Since childhood, my body is special. I can sense the location of many elixirs. Big sister, I'll help you find elixirs, okay? Mayan finally agrees, letting the youth follow her as they continue to explore the depths of the Danyang mountain range. With the youth's guidance, Mayan's speed in finding elixirs has indeed increased a lot. In just half a day, she has actually collected more than 90% of the materials for the Dragon Fire Dan. It was twice as fast as when she was alone. As night falls, Mu Yin sees that the youth's body is getting weaker and weaker. His face is pale, and his forehead is sweating profusely. He found a lakeside, set up a tent, lit a bonfire, and rested temporarily. Little sister, look, this is the spiritual fruit I picked for you. Do you like it? The youth's voice came from behind her. Mu Yin turned around, but couldn't help but stare blankly. The dirt on the young man's face had been washed away, and his clothes had been changed. The moonlight fell on the young man's face, illuminating his delicate and pretty face with a hint of flirtatious charm. The young man's eyebrows were slightly long and narrow, with a high-nose bridge and a tear-shaped mole under his left eye. She gave off a cold and aloof feeling, with a hint of evil charm. The youngster's appearance gives Mayan a somewhat similar feeling to Chi Huang. Although she wasn't as gorgeous and dazzling as Chi Huang, she had the same charm. The only difference was his eyes. The youth's eyes were so clear that the demonic charm on his body was suppressed. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.